Over the years, Australia has had many great boxing champions: Les Darcy, Vic Patrick, Lionel Rose, and many other greats. Tonight, we get to meet another great, Danny Green, the Green Machine. Hello everyone, I'm Mark the Hammer Castanini. Let's go now and meet Danny Green, share some of the emotion and the excitement that made such a special career.
Right here from Danny Green, and he steps down to Danny Green is your new world champion.
Well, Danny, thanks for joining us today, and thanks for your time. I know you've been absolutely flat out with all your many commitments since your retirement, the book and the family and so on and so forth, and we're looking forward to having a nice long chat with you today. But let's kick it off, I suppose, from the start, from the kid from Perth. You know, you love surfing, you loved your footy, and you know, everything that goes along with being a young bloke in Perth, I suppose. You had a good family and a good upbringing. And that's, I suppose it's very different to the usual, you know, cliched boxing story where, you know, it's the street kid made good. But for you, it was very different, with a very supportive family there. And of course the pranks that go along with having the big brother. That was a bit of a karate expert, I'm told, in his day. So tell us a little bit about growing up in Perth and the family unit.
Yeah, I was you know, blessed to, I still have a very, very tight family unit, and my mother and father were always very supportive and loving, and you know, got two loving sisters and an older brother as well. But you know, you go through ups and downs as a family. It's not always, you know, clean sailing or happy sailing, but or smooth sailing. But yeah, it was a great place to grow up in Perth. It was, you know, it's a fairly laid back environment compared to over here in Sydney.
Yeah.
And you know, after school we spent down the park chasing the cricket ball after my brother's hitting it over my head for six every time. And you know, kicking the footy around with the mates, or going to the beach. As soon as I discovered surfing around 11 years old, 12 years old, the beach took over, and I spent a hell of a lot of time down there. Sometimes away from school, sometimes you know, after school, before school. And you know, it was terrific. My mum and dad have been very, very supportive and very loving. And boxing's not actually a part of my family. I'm the first fighter from the family, even from relatives.
Yep.
And I guess, you know, since I've, you know, had my face on TV, I've got a lot of relatives that I didn't know I had. Some are relatives, some aren't. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, we weren't really a boxing family, though. My father, whom I'm very close with, he's you know, he's my best mate. Yeah. Apart from my brother and my best mate and another best mate and my daughter, and I've got so many best mates because I love them all. But yeah, Dad and I are close, and he loved boxing. Yeah. And you know, used to take me down the pub, you know, to watch some of the fights. And you know, when I was young, I used to look at Muhammad Ali's fights, and then, you know, started taking interest in Duran, sure, Leonard, Hearns, Hagler, and those the greats.
The golden years.
Yeah, the golden years. Yeah. And I never did any, you know, boxing when I was younger, but Dad had me out in the front lawn and, you know, teaching me to keep my hands up. And one of the very important things my father taught me that stuck with me, and probably been the biggest success inside the boxing ring for me, has been my left hand. It's always been my weapon, and it's always been my you know, my main gun, and it's served me so well. It's never let me down. Although sometimes when it drops down, I can hear my dad, pick your left up. He doesn't get involved, Dad. He just hates when I drop my left hand. That's one thing. He's never pulled me to do this. He's never pushed me to do that. You know, we had a handshake agreement before I turned professional. If you want to go pro, I'll decide when you've had enough. If you think you haven't had enough yet. Yeah. And that's one thing I'm glad I did. But you know, when I retired, I got out well before he told me to. Yeah. But yeah, so you know, it was a great time growing up in Perth, and I had many great memories. And my brother was pretty tough on me, old BG. You know, we're like that now. But you know, I wanted to train, you know, my last name when I was out with him. Sometimes I didn't want to be associated with him. He didn't get on that much. Typical older brother. Went to the food chain, and you know, he. I think he toughed me up a fair bit as well.
When the folks nicked out, he'd have his little usually a bit of a karate.
His favourite was always pushing my face into the corner of the couch. I think he thought that I liked a diet of you know, dog hair and crumbs and 5-cent coins or 1-cent coins back then. So you know, push the face in the corner of the couch and then jump on top for a ride with his knees and bang bang. And I think he thought I was laughing, but I was squealing for air, as well as some tears dropping down because I thought I was going to, you know, get asphyxiated because I couldn't breathe. So as soon as Mum and Dad would go, he'd rub his hands together and go, righto, and I'd be like, oh no, and
here we go.
He'd be into it. But
well, the shenanigans have been happening at home with your brother putting you into the corner of the couch there, and What happened when Dad come home? Did he sort you boys out for that sort of behaviour?
You know what? Mum was the one to sort us out. We'd have fist fights in the kitchen, and Dad would be sitting reading the paper, having a cup of tea, just shaking his head. You know, boys will be boys, I guess. And Mum was the one that was in the middle of trying to break us up. She was fearless. But yeah, Dad would, obviously instill discipline into us boys.
Yeah.
We needed it. We were pretty wild and a bit loose when we were young. So, we knew there was a line that if you crossed, then there would be a punishment handed out, and that was either the kettle cord or the belt. Get the strap across the back of the legs a couple of times if you really messed up, or a clip under the ear, and it never hurt us. It wasn't Dad didn't beat us up. He made sure that we knew. And being young blokes that are pretty raring to go, he needed to be able to keep order in the house, and he's the top of the food chain in the house, and he needed to make sure we knew that, and we knew there was a line across. And with my kids, it's the same. It's difficult with my daughter, but I'd prefer to use other ways, like she's going to miss out on things if she messes up.
Yeah.
But with my son Archie, I won't be shy and giving him a little bit of a temple burner or give him a clip under the ear if he messes up. And I want him to know that there's a line you just do not cross, and you have to respect your elders and respect everyone. And unfortunately, in today's day and age, the way society's going, there is no line. The kids don't know the line. They can do whatever they like, and they know their rights. And that's all well and good. Everyone has rights, but if you're a kid of today, today's age, I just don't see the respect. It's just frustrating to see that the way society's going is I guess it's going almost downhill, and we need to pull it back, and there should be respect for your elders and respect for everyone generally in the community. It's almost seemed as if it's cool, like that young mug Corey throwing a party and trashing the house, and we're all young. I don't throw stones. I'm not a saint. But you got to draw the line somewhere, and the fact that it's almost cool to be seen doing that stuff, and society to make a buck out of it, they're advocating it and they're promoting the fact this kid's cool. Give him to me for 5 minutes, he wouldn't say boo. I'll slap him, give him a slap and say, son, you're out of line, and it's time you grew up and have a bit of respect.
You did have your confrontations as a young bloke, a little bit of confrontation and physical stuff happening in Perth there against the bullies, but you stood up for yourself and what you believed in. I suppose that's the tone I get from hearing those stories.
Definitely, but as a young kid, I was always small and skinny little runt, but always had a bit of go in myself. So, I'd always stick up for my teammates when I was playing footy, or stick up for my mates outside. And society's changed as well. Back then, when you had a scrap, it was just man on man, and you sorted your differences out, and it was all over, and that was it. You'd move on. But today's is a different story.
That was the story there when you were an apprentice. You had a bit of a young bloke there that didn't like you much, in fact. And he told you so, and you sorted that one out man to man, let's say. Oh,
we didn't see eye to eye, and we both agreed on it. We went down the local park and we sorted it out, and he ended up on the wrong side of, we ended up with a bit of a quilting. So, but that's life, and we sorted our problems out. And later on in life, we saw each other and had a good laugh about it, because we got off our chest, he had our differences. He got a trip to the hospital, but he was
courtesy of you, I might say. You looked after him there.
I looked after him, mate. He was unable to drive. I had to help him out, take him to the doctor, then dropped him home, and his dad could take him to the hospital. I'm only going to extend the courtesy so much.
Far.
He could have knocked me out, mate. I can only be so hospitable, but it was a man-on-man difference, and it was all it's changed nowadays, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying if you got a problem, go out there and use your fists, but this was unavoidable.
I just want to talk a little bit about your early days. And your first induction to the fight game, it was actually kickboxing, and you had one win and you had one loss in the kickboxing ring. Yeah,
I did karate and Muay Thai when I was younger, but I always wanted to do boxing, but I just didn't have the gym to go to, and didn't really know where to go in Perth because there wasn't a lot around at that stage.
Yeah.
So I was training with my original boxing trainer, Patrick De Valera's. My brother was a very good footballer. He played two premiership teams for Claremont, and then was drafted to the West Coast Eagles, and he actually won fairest and best for his club, but then for Claremont, and then was drafted to the West Coast Eagles. But he got dropped after a year because they dropped the squad from 52 to 40, and he was one of those guys that got dropped, and unfortunately never got a chance at the AFL level to I guess have a crack. But he was a very good footballer, and one year him and his mate, who's obviously a good friend of mine now, Whizzer, they asked my dad if they could speak to Pat, who Dad was good friends with, Patrick De Valera's, and we'll go to him later, but for a pre-season training session, and I joined in, And then that was it. It was I was hooked from day one. Pat, who looks like Mr. Miyagi and speaks like Mr. Miyagi, he went in after that and said to Dad, he said, "Oh, Malcolm, your son, very strong left hand. He make very good fighter." I'm sitting there going, "Yeah, that's it. I found my passion in life. Let's do it." And so my brother was half the reason I got into boxing. We got the link. Then one night at training, we're training to have an amateur fight, but they got a phone call from a gym saying, "Would you like to have a fight? There's a guy, it was Thursday night, and there's got a guy on Saturday night who wants to fight you, and same division, not much experience." And Pat said, yes, and he got back to me, he said, "Daniel, son, I have a fight for you." He says, "But he's kicking as well." And I'd done Muay Thai or whatever, and I said, "All right, no worries, let's do it." And we got out to this an old industrial place in Bayswater, which is an industrial kind of a suburb. It's an old warehouse, and there was about 30 people watching, and a couple of young kids having their first fight. And I was looking at the boxing ring, and I thought, it's not actually it's not a boxing ring. There's a brick wall, and there was 3 ropes, and one of the sides of the ring was actually a brick wall. That's how raw this was. And the rules were, or the message from Pat was, "Go out there, son, and see, put him on the wall." And I said, "I don't think I really need to be told that, mate. That's the first thing I do is put him on the brick wall, get out of the danger." And he kicked me once in the leg, and I've gone crack, and I thought, "Oh, that hurt." So I cracked him, kicked him back, beautiful thigh kick, kicked him back, and he kind of turned to his right there, and that exposed him. I just, boom, landed the right hand, and he went down. He was out cold straight away, and I felt so exhilarated and so excited, but I felt really bad at the same time. I thought, geez, I've been hit by a cannon. I felt really bad. Anyway, he groggy, and they got him up, and that was it. It was all over in 30 seconds. That was my first fight in the boxing ring, and I was absolutely hooked.
It's a 3-sided ring, though.
A 3-sided ring.
3-sided, and one side didn't have much give in the ropes, huh?
And no, none at all. And the best thing about it was my dad was outside after, and he was listening to the bloke speak to his friend. And the bloke that I just fought had a can of bourbon in his hand and a fag in the other hand. His mate was consoling him and saying, "Don't worry about it, mate. It was just a lucky punch, And his mate was all, "Yeah, you're right. Yeah." He's swigging on his drink and having his fag.
Maybe it's got something to do with the pre-training tactics the boys have been employed in that one.
And I saw the humour, and I thought that's fantastic. That's what I love about the sport. There's so many people in there, and this kid outside in the street, he wouldn't be able to probably. He's not really a fighter. Yeah. He's not a thug, but he had the courage to step inside that ring. And he may not be the toughest or the best fighter in the world, nowhere near it, but at least he had that fortitude and that courage to test himself and get inside that boxing ring, which I respect.
Well, then you've had your dabble in the kickboxing there, and through Pat, you've decided now to move into the amateur boxing side and really throw your hat in the ring there and give it a good shake up. Tell us a little bit about the early years with the amateurs.
My first fight was against a guy called Milos Radovic. It was at an historic place in Perth called the Midland Town Hall, which is now shut down. He'd had 10 fights. I was training with the West Australian Amateur Boxing Association's matchmaker, Paddy Wilton, an old Irish guy. He's passed away since then. And my coach, Pat, we used to train in his backyard in Kundula under a carport. We used to dodge hail and rain in winter, and we were like travelling gypsies. Yeah, it was an amazing thing training with Pat. I learned so much, and he was a representative for Burma against Thailand and other international tournaments when he was a boxer himself, and he trained all his 4 sons to be national amateur champions in Australia. These old school methods like running with a tyre, with a belt strapped around my waist with a car tyre, doing hill sprints with a car tyre chasing me, and running around an oval with a car tyre, and sledgehammering a tyre, and a lot of old school training methods that I loved. And I used to go on the beach at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, with a car tyre, just drive down there on my own, and then pull it up, and then go down to the beach and run between these 2 big jetties, in between them, and dragging a car tyre to strengthen my legs. Yep. The reason I went down there at night is because I didn't want anyone seeing me, so I thought I was a lunatic.
See, today
it's changed.
That's actually trendy today. Doing all that extreme sort of training, the sledgehammering of the tyres. You see the UFC, pre-event fighters doing that to get their core strength up. So
we were doing this 15 years ago.
Pat Delvarez was well ahead of his time making.
He's a bit of an innovator,
stuff,
mate.
So he was.
The old school training methods is what I used to love. We used to train so hard, and then when it came to my first amateur fight, it was a really raw experience because the bright lights, you get in the ring and the bright lights, and it's so warm under the heat of the lights, and You're looking around, everyone's watching you, and they're baying for blood almost. And the guy I fought had 10 amateur fights and 7 KOs, and was a bit of a bruiser and covered in tattoos and a bit of a likely lad, and I was a skinny.
He was a bit older than you too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a bit older. Yeah,
mature.
I think I was 19 years old, and he was an older bloke, and he was a man. I was still a kid. and I had the old Converse gym boots on, this lime green suit. It was just lucky because Pat didn't actually have his own gym, so we had to fight under Paddy Wilton's gym, which was the Irish boxing club. So a bit of irony there. Excuse me. And for the first round, and when he's cracked me, he's just banging, and I just saw black for a split second. I was like, hang on, that's intense. You know, this guy's actually trying to knock me out. I thought I better switch on. And it was kind of a really strange feeling when you're in there and you realise he's trying to hurt you, and it's very personal.
Yeah.
So then, I threw some beautiful combinations and just got into the swing of things. And after round one, the nerves were out, and I was like, this is amazing. You're still nervous, but there's so much raw, primal, adrenaline just racing through your veins. And round three, I'd said I hurt him bad, and then got him on the ropes. And when I had him on the ropes, I'm swinging like a rusty gate. To start off, I hit him with a 1-2 that was one of the best 1-2s I've ever thrown. And I wobbled him, and then I just got the taste of blood and just onto him, and was swinging like a madman, and just didn't stop hitting him. And he was bang, bang, and the ropes were holding him up. He's boom, boom, and the ref couldn't get in between us because I was in a frenzy.
He was
the ref
worried about
couldn't get me off, and he was out. And I just kept cracking him and busted him up pretty bad. And and then after, and I was just so adrenalised, so full of energy, and then got my hand raised in victory. It was such the guy I fought he was fine. He lived to fight another day, and he actually thought he got ripped off in that fight. He wanted a rematch, so a year later I fought him again and put him away in 2 rounds. And so I closed the book on that rivalry. But
on that one.
It was such a great feeling, and had my mates there, my brother and Whizzer and a couple of boys with me, and it was an amazing experience just to get up there and win my first real kind of amateur fight.
Step up with the amateurs. Let me ask you this. Now, you've obviously had the dabble in the ring, I suppose the backyard or the very small events with the kickboxing, but then you've moved into the amateur boxing. Now, I know with the kickboxing there wouldn't have been the head guards and the shoes, obviously. So it's a personal thing, but how do you think your performance is with a head guard on? I know myself, I don't like it. It's supposed to be a safety mechanism, but for some reason I think sometimes they actually can double up on the impact that you cop. But I'm just, that transition there, how did you feel making that transition?
Well, going back, to Pat, our days, everything, a lot of the gloves we used were very old and tatty, and the head guard I used was ancient. And I don't know how it got past, but we always used to get away with it. We always had this head guard, and I used to be able to wear it, and it used to come up there. It was like that. It was like
just open face.
It was ridiculous. It wasn't even a head guard. It was just this blue thing, and it was that old. That was basically no padding left in the foam. It was just like a leather cap, like an old leather gridiron hat. It was just a leather cap basically. It was like a swimming cap. So it wasn't really a head guard. So it was perfect. The vision wasn't blocked. There was it was like I was wearing nothing. It was that light. So it wasn't even a head guard. So it was cool.
So we're getting a bit into the technicality of it all now, and the technicality takes us into your time at the AIS, the Australian Institute of Sport, and of course you were there with Boda, who was very staunch. I think it was German,
East German, Bodo Andreas, and he was contracted out in 1997 to become the because we had the Olympics here, Boxing Australia wanted to, get the best guy out here to try and get a medal.
How structured was the training there, and what was it like being a boxer in the AIS?
Well, I'd gone from training with Pat, being an extreme disciplinarian and just being that hard a trainer that it was ridiculous. And loved it. I soaked it up. That was what I guess my career was forged out of hard work. It was my bread and butter. And also when I got to the Institute of Sport, Bodo Andreas was there. We used to train 4 times a day. He was a very strict disciplinarian, and a lot of the Aussie guys that had experience and other guys, they're normally just laid back, right to training once a day, go the odd jog, and that's it. And that's why the performances weren't as good as they could have been, because we've had some great talent over the years. And to have a guy come in from East Germany, very strict and bold and very down the line and plays a straight bat. But also the difficult thing for Bodo was his hands were tied. He wanted to do many things, but the guys above him, which were basically these old dinosaurs above him, didn't have the vision or the brains or the ability to know what to do. They don't know how to promote amateur boxing. They don't know how to manage it properly. They don't know how to get the fighters a profile out there, which is going to bring on sponsors, which is going to in turn make the sport of amateur boxing far more enticing for people to jump on board and to pay to be associated with the sport, which is going to then help the fighters travel overseas, get international experience, and become better fighters, and overall increase or improve the ability of all of our fighters, especially coming through the amateur ranks, which is like an apprenticeship into the professional ranks.
You also brought a bit of levity to the whole situation. You're a bit of a joker. We all know that. You like to have the odd practical joke, but I suppose you lightened up the mood a little bit there.
Well, the first meeting we had, it was very serious, and all the boys were nearly shaking their boots. This guy, they weren't used to the regiment that he was bringing to the Australian boxing, way of life. Then I was going to crack a joke at the first minute. I thought, no, not the place. I picked my mark. I waited, and it was probably about 4 weeks into him training us, and he used to have us line up in a line. And we'd never done it before, so he had us lining up there and we'd stand up still, and he'd talk to us about what we're going to do. We'd rough, we'd all work and train in a line. It was a very uniform, regimented. It was almost like the military for boxing. And one day we're standing in line, and if anyone did anything wrong, they'd get they'd be punished. They'd have to do extra rounds, or do 100 push-ups or sit-ups or whatever, extra laps after training or whatever it was. And one day I was next to the heavyweight that was in the team, and he was standing next to me. I thought, oh, here we go, and I had to fart. So I thought, I can't hold this.
Break wind, mate.
I had to break wind, and I had a little bit of flatulence, and so I've let it go, and I just looked straight at him. I thought, I'm going to have to think before I do this how I'm going to get away with it, but also have him, crack up laughing. So I've let one rip and gone, mate, you're right, and just looked at him straight away. And Coach, you could see we used to have to call him Coach, and he went the colour of that bag there. He went bright red, like with rage. And this big fella looked at me as if to say, what have you done? And then I was like, and I just stood there with my head down going, I can't believe you did that, mate, that's terrible. He copped the punishment, and then later on he tried to punish me, but I had his number, so it was all right. I was only a middleweight, but I still had his number.
It comes back to that disciplining though, eh? He would have had to do the laps and the push-ups on that one.
I think I'd seen him, not train as hard a couple of times, so I just think he needed it. So I was actually just helping him out, really. He
helping the Australian heavyweight cause.
I was helping the Australian boxing team by, making sure the big fella got a few more laps in.
So then what we're seeing now is some of the great work you did in the amateur ranks, and I suppose it really set you up, and to the people around you and yourself, the realisation was happening that, hey, I've got a real shot at this sport and progressing further. Yeah,
as an amateur, my style always suited the professional ranks, because my style was to go out there and kind of destroy who was in front of me, and I've always I've been gifted with a very good punch and been gifted with an equally good chin, so I could give as good as I took, which I guess excited the fans. And as you're seeing, there's some pretty good knockouts here, and these are some of my earliest fights, and some of them are my third and fourth fights as an amateur. And I was pretty raw, as you can see. I'm letting them go from the boots, and there's not a lot of style there. It's just all that aggression, and I'm learning my trade. But also some of the guys you're seeing getting KO'd here are very good fighters. Some of the amateur ones that have had 150, 200 fights. There's an Hungarian and an English champion there, and a lot of guys in there that have had a lot more experience than me. Yeah. In my 10th, 15th, 20th fight that I'm giving it to. So. And
you were still training. Obviously, Pat was still your main man.
Pat, and then also mixed in with Bodo Andreas, the amateur boxing coach. When I started my first. I had my first scholarship to the AIS in 1997. Yep. I made my way onto the Commonwealth Games in 1998 in Kuala Lumpur, and then obviously onto the Olympic Games in 2000 Sydney. So, as an amateur, it was my style always suited the professional ranks. And I remember a photographer his name's Pete Ward. He's been a photographer in Melbourne and covered sport for a long time. And he said to me at a training session, he says, "Geez, Granny, you'd make a great professional, mate. You ever thought about turning pro? And you suited much better to the pro ranks." And I'll never forget that when he said that, because it was just before the Olympic Games started, and obviously I turned pro after that.
Well, some interesting stuff and some great insights from Danny Green, and we'll be back with more right after the break. So the amateur career's ticking along nicely. You're in the AIS. Everything's going to plan. You get the Sydney Olympics. What a huge event. Just take us through that whole feeling, that whole experience.
It was massive. It was such a rush, and when we were in the Olympic Stadium, we were at another arena before we moved around. All the countries were in one arena, and then one by one, alphabetically, they all left the arena and filtered out. In Australia, we were the last ones to go, although we were the first letter. We were the last ones in. And remember when our time was to come, because we made a big long walk, and there was thousands and thousands of people, watching, the teams walk past, and then we got into the arena. I think it was 100,000 people there. It was packed. And on the way through down this big tunnel, I remember just saying to my mate Paul Miller, who was one of my good friends and still is, and I'd actually painted my face before the fight. I thought, how am I going to get on TV? I'm a boxer. No one's going to want to see a boxer. No one knows me. They're going to show Perkins and Klim and all the superstars, Kathy Freeman, show all the legends. Yeah. So there's no way I'm going to get on TV. So I thought about something. I'm going to have to do something to get on TV. Either get naked or do something, a little less silly. So I took the green and gold zinc with me, and just before we all left, I went into the toilets and painted my face green and gold with the zinc. And I did it then so no one else could think of doing it, because I wanted to be the only one to do it. And then all the guys are saying, "Oh, where'd you get that? What happened? What did you think of that for? Why did I do that?" I'm thinking, "Yeah, it's because I want to get in TV here." And then I want to see my family and friends to see me back home. So when we walked down this big tunnel, I remember letting out this big Aussie, 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 and the response, all the team, there was hundreds and hundreds of people, and I let out a big oi, 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 and it just thundered back up the tunnel. It was such an electric feeling, and it was a very, very proud moment. And then to walk through the race, and then to come to the arena, and before we got there was just people everywhere just screaming at us, and it was just an amazing feeling. It made you, the hair stand up on the back of your neck, and the tears almost well up in your eyes. It's a very emotional, uplifting experience. And then walking to the arena, the roar was thunderous, and they gave us these little kangaroos to throw out. And I had my video camera, these little boxing kangaroos rubber to throw in the crowd. Yeah. And I didn't realise it, but then because my face is painted, I ran straight up the first camera I saw, and I went, "Perth, Western Australia, I love you." And, I put my face that far from the camera, and it actually got on TV, and I was so happy. But when I'm throwing these things into the crowd, I didn't realise, but I was so excited that I'm letting them off like grenades, and I'm hurling them. And I hope I never hit anyone with them. But, and I didn't realise, but I had my camera on, I didn't even know it. And up on the big screen, they just happened to be taking the footage of what I was doing. And I actually captured that on the big screen, so it was just pure luck that I had my video on the big screen and saw it, and they had me hurling these things like grenades.
You're taking a picture of them, so it's all...
I got halfway around the track, and out of all the people in the arena, I saw my coach Pat. He was down there, so I ran over to him and gave him a big hug, and it was such an emotional time. And I was there because of him. My involvement with Pat, I owe Pat so much. He gave me such a great foundation, and he was really, I love training with Pat more than I love training with anyone, because he was so passionate. It was just me and Pat, and it was such a great team. Yeah. And, Pat now is he can say that he's trained a world champion, and I have Pat. I owe Pat a lot, and he's just I love him. We like
it's Pat. It's like the Pat Morita and Karate Kid story. It's a bit similar there.
Very similar. Yeah. It's a cool story, and I feel like putting him on my shoulders and carrying him around, because he deserved to be with me there. But it was so great to be able to go and see him and to do that, at the entrance, and it was an amazing time. And then I got to meet Muhammad Ali in the food hall, and
I was about to bring up Muhammad Ali's story, but we'll just talk a little bit about your bouts there, and you had a good first round.
Yeah, had a great round. Drew Brazil, a guy called Laudalino Barros, who was very similar to me. Pretty, as a light heavyweight, I'd put on I bulked up and did a lot of weights at the AIS, and had kind of got a bit bigger. And he was a similar style fighter, very aggressive, big kid, come forward and let him go as well. So it was the last fight of the night. I was the only Australian fighting on the night, and they said to me, "What song do you want as your ring entrance?" And I'd never had a ring entrance song before as an amateur, so it was new. I thought, what do I get? Yeah. All the boys are choosing the rap songs and the Akadaka, the hard rock to really jam up. I thought, I'm gonna play something that Australians are gonna love, and I chose the Land Down Under by Men at Work. And since then, been every single time I've ever entered the ring as a fighter, after or during the Olympics and after as a pro, has been my entrance song. Yeah. And it signifies me. I'm an Aussie, and the Australians. When I walked out, I wasn't sure how they were going to take it, and there was 8,000 people there, and they'd been waiting for this Aussie, as they didn't know, to come out in the last fight of the night, and the only Aussie fighting on the night, and they just went ballistic. It was just an amazing experience to walk to the ring, and I felt like I was, walking on air. It was incredible, and jumped in the ring, and you have to just, as a fighter, you've got to switch off from what's going on outside you. You've got to put the blinkers on. Yeah. And I remember just going, this is amazing. I just felt like jumping in the crowd and enjoying it myself. It's like I had to stop myself from jumping over and high-fiving and hugging everyone, saying, yeah. Forgot they had to fight. Jumped in the ring and I was really focused, really switched on, and I knew they had a very tough, hard opponent in front of me. Also, I knew, get through this guy, and I got Lebziak, Alexander the Animal Lebziak, next up, because he drew Senegal, and I knew he was going to get through that. He was a world champ, 3-time Olympian, and probably the best known amateur fighter at the games. But I focused on Barros, and we put on a real show. You know, a lot of the fighters, the amateur fighters, especially the big games, it's tap, 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 I move, tap, tap, tap. You know, there's not a lot of guys who go out there looking for the knuckle, and we changed that on that night, and the crowd really loved it, and we put on a ding-dong fight we both let go from the boots, and it was a real good fight. And
So you went on and you weren't as lucky the second time around against the Beast?
I remember in the change rooms before the fight, I could hear this boom, boom, boom. It was him hitting the pads in the next room. It sounded like cannons going off. I was like, jeepers creepers, that's pretty loud.
It's hard, yeah.
And Bodo, the coach, he was saying to me, we do this, my man, we must do this, and we move this way, and we throw this punch and this way and that way. I said, Coach, mate, let's look at the big picture here. It's Alexander Lebziak. He's a legend of the sport. His nickname's the Animal for a good reason. He's a monster in there. I said, I'm just going to go out there and throw him from the boots. I'm going to have a real dig, and let's see how we go. He goes, okay, my man, let's do it. Because I think he knew that I'm not going to be able to outbox Alexander Lebziak. On the bus to go to the fight, we got a bus from the Olympic Village, and I was the only Australian that was on the bus that night, and there was only 3 other people on that bus, and it was dark, it was that night, and that was Alexander Lebziak, his coach, and his team manager. And there was 4 people on the bus, Lebziak and myself and his team, and that was it. And I remember getting on the bus and I saw him, I thought, where do I sit? There's so many seats left. So I went and plonked myself right in front of him. I sat down right in front of his seat just to let him know, mate, I'm not scared of you, I don't care. It was really weird. I'm about to fight him in the Olympic Games, but he's sitting right behind me. And I had a really bad cough. I'd picked up a cough 2 days before. I hadn't slept much after the first victory because I was so, on cloud 9 still. So I was trying to suppress this cough, and I didn't want him to know I had a cough to give him a psychological advantage, thinking, hey, he's crook, I've got one over him. So I'm sitting there and I'm going, trying not to cough and trying to let him know. It was the most difficult bus ride I've ever had for half an hour, because I was trying to, and as soon as I got to the stadium, I'd almost got rid of my cough by suppressing it, so it must be up here. Anyway, I got to the venue, and when we got in the ring, got inside the boxing ring, and there he was, and he was, he's doing this, and he basically had a head like a foot. And it was just, he was an incredibly daunting figure, but I really had no nerves as far as being worried about fighting him, and he'd put our 1996 Olympian Justin Crawford in hospital, the Olympic Games before, punched him, and got severely knocked out, and so I saw Justin Crawford, at the lead up to the game, said, mate, I'll get one back for you if I fight Lebziak, and didn't know I was going to fight him, but actually drew him. So, there was always in the back of the mind, this guy's, put one of our boys in hospital, I've got a bit of payback coming here for him. And first round, I threw a right hand and bang, landed a beautiful right hand and hit him right here, and most guys would have probably gone down and been knocked out, but I broke 2 bones just there and instantly in my right hand. And as soon as I cracked him, I'd broken that one 3 times, and I had a 2-inch plate holding it together, so with 8 screws, so I knew exactly what a broken hand was. I'd fought with it 3 times. Cracked him and gone bang, went oh, and straight away went, oh shivers, I've broken my right hand. It's going to be tough to win with one hand. You need 8 hands with this bloke.
I'm sure you didn't say shivers too, but I
didn't say anything, but I thought a lot worse than that. And so in the first round, I actually was leading 3-2, and I went back to the corner after round 1, and I was leading, and no one expected me to still be standing after round 1. Such was the legendary status of Lebziak. Round 2, first 15 seconds, left hook, and I dropped him. And the crowd has gone berserk, and my close mates, Brooksy and Whizzer, you can see in the footage, and they're jumping up and down, and one of them's hugging Laurie Lawrence. Whizzer's got Laurie Lawrence, who's ringside, and hugging him. They're going berserk, and the crowd went mad. And then after round 2, I'm still leading, but in round 2, he broke my nose. So in round 2, I'm still leading the fight. And then in round 3, he started to really come on. He started to chop me up a bit, and he started to throw some good shots, and it made it difficult because I couldn't throw the right hand down. It hurt even just to block. And in round 3, because it was such a different fight that the referee and the judge had expected, the referee that refereed the fight, I think, got banned from refereeing another fight for 4 years after that fight, because it was such a ridiculous, it was shocking how he refereed the fight. He was just all for Lebziak, and it was pretty poor. Anyway, we went up to the doctor, and the doctor tried to stop the fight, and he was saying, because it was bleeding profusely, and he tried to stop the fight, and he looked at the referee as if to say, and just as he did that, I've just gone, no! I've just gone bang, 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 bang my nose, and I said, F off, I'm all right, and just basically walked off on my own. So the referees kind of go, well, okay, he's good to fight, they can't call it off. and kept fighting. And then Lebzak really started to come on strong, started coming home and started to chop me up, and I was still landing, you know, some clean hard shots at him. But in the end, if you get more than 15 points up in an amateur fight, they stop the fight. So just, you know, halfway through round 4, they stopped the fight. He was up by 15 points at that stage, and that was it. My Olympic dream was over. But it was strange because it was such an awesome experience. I got to fight the eventual gold medalist. Dropped him.
Well, he took out the gold medal. Let's not, you know, he walked through everyone else.
And after me, he just cleaned him up. He really didn't have much trouble, and I gave him the hardest fight. And he told me that, you know, when I saw him at the Olympic Village, he said, "That was the hardest fight I had." He says, you know, you should be very proud of yourself. And he was a really laid back guy, Lebzak.
But it was really an interesting time, and a dream, I suppose, of yours was realised where you actually met Muhammad Ali at the Olympic Village.
Yeah, to meet Muhammad Ali at the food hall was. You know, he's the reason that I've been able to make a living from professional boxing, I feel, because of the fact that he brought boxing to the masses.
Yep.
He brought it to the mainstream public, and his charisma, his flair, his flamboyance, plus his skill inside the boxing ring. You know, he's my favourite fighter of all time. He's probably most people's favourite fighters.
Yeah.
And, excuse me, he's, you know, I got to meet him at the Olympic Games, and we're at the food hall. He was at the food hall, and one of the boys came in and woke me up and said, "Granny, Muhammad Ali's at the food hall, quick, quick, quick." Jumped out of bed, ran down there, got out. We got like 20, 30 metres in the road. Realised I was in my boxer shorts and a t-shirt. And I thought, shit, I was still asleep. Ran back, got some clothes on, and then got my camera, and ran down the food hall as fast as I could. And when we got down there was a massive, like probably 300 or 400 people surrounding the area he was in. Just this throng of people wanting to get a photo. I thought, oh, there's no chance. You know, there's a huge line. I'll never get a chance to meet him. Now, the Special Forces group, I think it's SPG, the Special Patrol Group, the police that were doing the security of the village, they used to walk around the village all the time, and we were pretty much the only blokes who spoke to them. And, "Hey boys, how are you? Come and have a drink." And, you know, they'd sit and chew the fat in the porch for half an hour and have a laugh and have a yarn. And, you know, they really appreciated that fact, because a lot of other athletes, you know, we're all focused, but we're a bit more, you know, the boxers are a bit more laid back and a bit more, you know, down to earth.
Social.
A bit more social. And that's not to say that the other athletes weren't social and you know, great people, just that they were different sport, and they were very, you know, switched on. A lot of the high-profile ones weren't even staying in the village, and, you know, they probably just didn't really want to, you know, socialise that much, whereas, you know, we're just...
But that paid off for you. That little bit of socialising paid off for you, because all this queue, all these people waiting, you've rolled up. Just about to be devastated, and they've given you a bit of a leg up to get up to meet Ali just before he pulled the pin on the whole thing and called it a day, huh?
Gave me a big leg up. He said, "G'day, Danny, how you going?" I said, "Yeah, good, bud, how you going?" He says, "Yeah, good, thanks." He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I just want to get a photo with Ali, but, you know, not to be, unfortunately." He goes, "Mate, come with me. If anyone's going to get a photo with us, with Muhammad Ali, it's an Australian boxer, come with me, son." He's walked me up and he marched me straight to the front of the aisle and just propped me there, and he goes, "There you go." And I was like, oh, could feel the daggers behind me. I felt terrible, but it's just, I had no choice. I want to get a photo.
Everyone probably would have done the same thing.
And I felt
shocking.
I felt terrible, but I just, you know, I had to kind of withstand the daggers getting stabbed into my back by all these, you know, eyes with infrared just zoning in on me like, who's that guy? What's he doing? Anyway, I got to meet Muhammad Ali, and when I sat down there, he had sunglasses on, and obviously he was suffering quite heavily from the effects of Parkinson's at this stage, and he wasn't saying a lot, and he was wearing these big dark sunnies, and his manager said, "Hey Muhammad, this guy's a boxer from Australia." Muhammad Ali took his glasses off and he went, and he looked over to me and he put his arm around me and he went like that, and he was staring me like in the eyes, staring down the barrel, and I didn't know what to do, and I just went bang and went like that, and the guy took a photo with my camera right at the perfect, the perfect moment, and captured a beautiful moment for me.
Yeah.
And when I got up, I didn't know what to say to Muhammad Ali. I had no idea. I was just, you know, I was quivering. I was like, what do I say to the guy? He's a legend. I said, "Mate, thanks so much. You know, you're a legend." And you know, I just felt like staying there. I didn't want to go. And when I got up there, I kind of tapped him on the shoulder, and I had no idea what I was going to say, and it just came out. I said, "Muhammad, you're the effing greatest, mate." And I went, "Oh, what did I just do? What have I done?" I just swore at Muhammad Ali, and I walked off. As I'm walking off, I'm cherry red with embarrassment, and my cheeks are tingling. I'm feeling horrible, and I look back at Muhammad Ali, and he's looking at me, and his eyes he told the whole story, and his eyes were saying to me, "Don't worry, son. I know how you're feeling. It's okay. Don't be embarrassed. It's okay. I know what you're saying, and yes, I'm the greatest." It was so cool, and he kind of gave me this little wink, and I was like, "Oh, that's the best." And
well, he certainly was the greatest professional boxer of all time, and certainly that would have been a real buzz. But now it's time. The Olympics is out of the way. It's 2001 now, and you've become a part of the United Nations of Boxing here in Sydney, and it was Team Fenwick with all his motley crew of people from all over the world at the gym there. And you've been introduced and taken to your new flatmate, Vic Darchinian. And he's cooked you the whopping big steak there, and it's an interesting read in the book. Actually, I'll just hold the book up now. That's the book there. So you've got to go and check this one out, because nothing tells a story like the way this has been written by Daniel Lane. And I read with great amusement that whole chapter. But living with Darchinian, training with Fennick, it was really a magical era and a busy year. There's seven fights you crammed in as well, straight up.
Yeah, it was, I had the opportunity to turn professional. Jeff said, come over to Sydney and live here and base yourself here and turn pro. Before the Olympic Games even started, I was made the offer. And it was something I always wanted to do. My dad wasn't that keen, but he said he knew me, knew I was stubborn. He said, well, if that's what you want to do, mate, I'll stand beside you. So, but he said we had a handshake agreement. As long as you realise if I say enough's enough, and I think your desire's waning, your performance is slipping, or you're not into the sport as much, or there's damage, then if I say, then you have to walk away. And we agreed on that. So I turned pro, and I put everything in an old my Magna and a microwave, a TV, a video, and some other essentials, and put on the train and flew over. And when I got there, I was teamed up with Vic Darchinian. Yep. He recently had just relocated to Sydney after the Olympic Games as well from Armenia. Yep. And Billy Hussain picked me up from the airport, and I knew Billy, and he dropped me out to Vic's house, this old unit out in Bankstown, smack bang in the heart of Bankstown. And we got there and knocked on the door, and there's little Vic. And he said, I take your bags. His English wasn't as good as it is now because he hadn't been here long. I take bags. I said, no. And he kind of wrestled off and said, mate, I'm all right. Goes, no. I was like, you take your bags, Vic, no worries. Take the bags, mate. Put him, pump in the room. He says, you in that room there. And he's pretty, when you meet, when Vic, before his English was better, he was, inside heart of gold, but a very tough exterior. Yeah. And so we sat down, and we're sitting down, and the language barrier is pretty tough. So I'm sitting there, and what do I say to this bloke? I don't know him from a bar of soap, and he doesn't speak English that well, and I don't speak Armenian that well. So he offered me, he says, you eat, you hungry, you eat. I said, no, I'm all right, Vic. I just said, you eat, okay? I said, all right, I'll eat. No worries, mate, I'll eat. I'm not going to upset you. You're a little flyweight, but if anyone knows Vic, he's 150 kilogram flyweight and 6'5", and can punch and fight like one. Anyway, excuse me, he got a steak, whacked it in the pan, got some chips, put it in the pan, put it in the oven. Whacked that in the oven, burnt it, and brought it out to me. Brought it out, and there's some salt and pepper and some other stuff, and I loaded it up with salt and pepper to give it a little bit of flavour, and away I went. I ate it, and he sat there, and he was studying me, and I was sitting there eating it, and chew by chew, it was like a leather boot, but there's no way I wasn't going to finish that steak. He'd extended his hand of courtesy to me, and I had to, power through it and show my appreciation. And to me, that sums up Vic. He's a very hospitable, respectful, and he's a beautiful bloke as well. And that, we forged a great friendship. And every night we'd play cards, and we trained hard together. We ran hard together. And then, at night we'd play cards over some Lebanese bread with honey, and sit there and play, countless games of cards. We didn't play for money because we didn't have much money then. Yeah. We just played for bragging rights. And obviously after a while, I moved out and moved into a unit on the railway line in Ashfield, and then my girlfriend Nina flew over, and my then girlfriend, my now wife, flew over, and that's when we made Chloe. But the gym we trained at was like a United Nations of boxing. There was a Tunisian, Ben Rabat. There was two Indigenous blokes. We had Glenn and Kevin Kelly. We had I was the token skip of the outfit, although we had Ian McLeod as well, a cane farmer from Queensland. A very funny character. We had who else? We have Vic from Armenia, Sakio Bika from Cameroon. Yeah. We had Nader Hamden, Hussein, Skinny Hussein, Nadal Hussein, and also their brother Billy was the assistant trainer, the trainer a lot of the time down there, full-time trainer from Lebanon. So we had all these, varying. It's a melting pot of
cultures
fighters
and attitudes and. And
also Pete Manassis. Pete Manassis is an Aussie, born in Australia, but he's a Greek fella as well. And some great people that we train with, and we all train so hard. And guys like Nader Hamden and Skinny and Hussey Hussein and Billy Hussein and those kind of blokes, I learned so much off. These guys were terrific to train around. And when I'm coming through the amateur ranks, from the amateur ranks and breaking into the pro ranks, I learned a lot off these guys about fighting. About I've had a bad day in the gym, especially Nader. He'd always say, "Greenie, don't worry about it, mate. If you had a bad day, this is part and parcel. Don't be so hard on yourself." Because I was always very hard on myself personally if I didn't perform well. And he was great. He taught me a lot, and I'm obviously good friends with Nader to this day, and all the Hussein brothers, and they're great people who we shared some great times with. And Pete Manassis, my old sparring partner. I fought him for the Australian amateur title back in 1997 and was victorious. And we've been good mates since then. But we had some wars, and Nader and I, and Sakyo, and the guys like that. We had some intense wars in the boxing ring, but never any animosity. It was always we'd punch shades out of each other. But then when that's over and we're leaving, we're having jokes, pulling pranks on each other, and having a lot of laughs. And it was a great environment to train in.
But it was a busy year. In fact, so 7 fights, the most you've had in 1 year, I think, in your pro history.
7 fights, 7 KOs. I think most of them were second round KOs, and I fought twice in 1 week actually. I fought Jason Herrera at Star City one night, and he was a pretty experienced fighter, and I was in my 4th fight going to that, and I put him away in the second round. I shocked him, and then next fight I fought the weekend after that, and I guess Fox Sports I was so happy because they made me the main event, which I was very surprised being made main event, my 5th fight, against a guy from Victoria called Heath Stenton, who'd just gone the distance with Anthony Mundine, and that's pretty much where the Mundine rivalry started. After that fight, I put Heath away in the second round. We didn't come out I dropped him hard in the first round. First minute, I dropped him with a punch that should have knocked him out. And he's a tough guy, very, very, very courageous, tough bloke. And I saw him recently in Victoria, and a lovely bloke, and it was great to see him again. And he got up from that punch, which I don't know how, because it was flush. And then I ended up, really, really, bringing down the hammer on him in the second round, and punished his body and upstairs as well. And he didn't come out for the 3rd round because I think he knew that he was, I was at that stage, I was, on my way up, and I was a level above him at that stage. And he made a good decision because he was probably going to get hurt. No disrespect to Heath, but I was so hungry and I was on fire, and there was nothing going to stop me, and no one was going to get in my way. And after that fight was when my name was mentioned to Anthony Mundine after one of his fights, and his response was, what about Danny Green? He's a young, there's an up-and-coming super middleweight who's just knocked out Heath Stenton. He's had 5 and 5 all KOs. Chance you'll fight him. And he said, who's that bum? He's a bum. Who is he? I don't know him. He's a mug, So
is that where all the rival? It all had to start somewhere, and
that's where it started with me and Anthony personally.
Yeah.
Anthony had his differences with Jeff Fennick before that, because Jeff and Ian McLeod and Nader Hand jumped him at a press conference to put it on him to fight Ian McLeod one day. Now that had nothing to do with me. I wasn't even on the scene then.
Yeah.
My personal difference with Anthony Mundine started then. That's when he took a crack at me.
Yeah.
When he took a crack at me like that, I didn't care. I laughed. I thought it didn't bother me, and I'd respected. I'd been asked about Anthony Mundine, and I always paid him respect. I'd always said he's a very good fighter, and have a lot of respect for his ability, his electric hand speed, and he's got a real big future. But he didn't repay the favour. He didn't return the goodwill that I'd shown him. But it didn't bother me, and I knew that a lot of it was just about him pumping himself up.
A lot of it is about the hype, about the event, and boxing's renowned for it. And Anthony Mundine is one of the key players in building the hype. So
he's the biggest player in building the hype. But unfortunately, I think Choc believes it as well. He starts believing it, and I think he drifts over from reality into dream world sometimes, and has trouble sometimes drifting back into the reality. But that's where it started. That's how the whole thing started right there and right then when he was asked a question about me. But classic response was I always wrote off his name, and I made my career on the back of Anthony Mundine. When we fought, more people came to see us fight than any fight in the history of Australia, and it was the biggest grossing super middleweight bout in the history of boxing, in the sport, in the world. It was the biggest fight Australia's ever seen. More people watched that fight than any other fight ever. But the fact that he thinks that I wrote off his name, testament to that fact is now he's chasing me for a rematch when I've retired. His cash cow's kicking back in Scarborough now. And secondly is, if that was the reason, why weren't all his fights that big?
Yeah.
The reason was that the people came to see me beat him. They didn't want to see me, him beat me. They came to see me beat him. So to say that I wrote off his name is the proof's in the pudding. The reason
we'll touch on
clear.
We'll touch on that more in just a little while. But I just want to go back to the transition from amateur to pro and your first professional bout, which was against the Fijian Waka Kozivo.
Waka Kulavuso, yeah.
Kulavuso, sorry, yeah. Now. What was the transition like for you there?
Piece of cake. I'd been doing a lot of sparring with professional fighters way before that, so I was looking forward to it. I was just relishing the fact that I was going to be able to do it. And my first fight was on Friday night fights on Foxtel, and it was just a massive buzz, but nowhere near as glamorous or financially rewarding as people think. If they knew how much I earned, they'd scratch heads and say, "What for?" It was for the love, back then. But and it always was. And it was out at Bellevue, the Bellevue Function Centre out in Bankstown. there was metal detectors to get in. My mum would come over for the fight. My mother and my father and my sister and my brother were there. And, my mum, she was detected with a metal detector. They went up down her, and luckily she left her AK at home that night, but she probably wouldn't have gone in. Mum was in the car park after punching on with all the boys, but she just left her guns at home. But it was a crazy experience. I was the first fight of the night. I was on TV, and it was my first pro debut, and Jeff Fennick in my corner. It was a massive buzz. Yeah. And I went out there and took care of him in the second round and put him away, and he probably wasn't up to my standard, but it was a good stepping stone, and just to get the nerves out. And I did what I had to do. I didn't rush, picked my shots, and hardly got touched, and put him away with some really clean shots. And after the fight, I was on such a high. And then I saw this guy, in the corner of the room, Wacko, and he'd flown over from Fiji, and he didn't have a lot, obviously didn't have a lot of money, and I felt bad that I'd beaten him so badly, but also, he didn't have a lot. So I said, he looked hungry. I said, mate, do you want something to eat? And he said, oh. So I lined up for the kitchen, heard giving me meals out to the function there, and I lined up for the kitchen to bring out a big meal and some drinks for him, and made sure he went home with a full stomach, and extended my hand of friendship and courtesy to him, because I respected him, even though he wasn't as good a fighter as me. I respect the fact that he had the courage to get in there, and the hard thing was too, mate, I respect a lot, is he needed to get in there.
Yeah.
I chose to, he needed to, which for me, strikes a chord with me, because I really kind of feel for guys that have to get in the ring because they have to. Well,
it's the living that some guys choose, and you're, as I said, fresh out of the Olympic campaign, and physically at a peak, would have been a big challenge. But you said the early days you were doing it for the love. The money wasn't that great. You were doing it for the love, and there was a lot of love in that time. And Nina, again, I reference back to the book, but Nina, love of your life, met her at 16 years of age.
I didn't meet her. I saw her when I was 17. She was 16, I was 17. I saw her, but I never met her. I met her when I was 20. Got to meet her one night. I thought, oh yeah, she's pretty foxy, that girl. She's very foxy. So I thought, I never bothered. I didn't bother taking any further. I thought, I'm kind of punching out of my weight here. So one night I actually was on crutches. I'd come out of a car, unfortunately, doing something stupid when I was under the influence. I was drunk and got out before the car had stopped moving, and it was a bit of a silly thing to do, but I was covered head to toe in bandages and shattered my ankle. I was at crutches when I accidentally backed in her at a bar and bumped into her, and she looked at me, and apparently she went over to friends, and because I kind of looked at her when she backed into me, and she kind of looked at me as if to say, what are you doing? I looked at her and said, well, you bumped into me. And then she said, sorry, and I went, that's all right, no worries. And she's on her way, and apparently she went over to her friends and said, who's that guy? Who does he think he is? And they didn't know who I was. It was just some punk on crutches, some idiot. But then she said to me, oh, I didn't mind him, Especially he showed a bit of spark as well, so she thought it was all right. So when I eventually met her, we started hanging out, and never looked back. I fell in love with her pretty much the moment I saw her. And she's been.
You've been married now how many years?
6 years now. We've been married, and she's a beautiful person, and she's been always with me by my side, and she's been very supportive, and she's the mother of my 2 kids, and she's absolutely gold.
And you've known each other obviously longer than the time you were married. You got married in Vegas.
Yes.
By Elvis at one of the Elvis chapels. Again, an interesting story from the book. But
dressed as Elvis Presley.
Dressed as Elvis, and your dad, as best man, was a bit shocked.
He had no idea.
Getting him up and telling him you're getting married. But so there's a lot of history there, and I've got to say, with meeting Nina and yourself and seeing how you guys interact so many years down the track, being together, it's like you're so compatible, and you're best mates really. And
we're compatible, but we also clash too, because we're very alike.
Yeah,
that's how opposites match. Well, we're very alike and very opposite in some ways too. So it's an interesting matchup. But we obviously love each other dearly, and she's been terrific to me. And the wedding in Vegas, I was over there fighting. I rang her and said, "Let's get married." We had Chloe. Chloe was 4 months old, and we took her over. It took Nina to come over, and Dad didn't have a clue what was going on. And I dressed as Elvis Presley because we were getting dressed in the Elvis chapel. And we have a bit of fun with it. And I knocked on Dad's door, and he was asleep. He was there for the fight as well. And he went to the door, and I'm dressed as Elvis Presley with the sunnies and the hair sleeve. But he says, "What are you doing?" And I'm always pranking my dad, the poor bugger. He cops it all. He said, "What are you doing?" And he's asleep. So I'm having a sleep. Go away. I said, "Mate, I'm getting married, Dad. You're the best man. Let's go." And he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm getting married. I'm the best man. Here's the rings." I threw the rings in the bed. I said, "Come on, let's get downstairs. The limo's waiting." He goes, "Go away, will you? I'm not interested. You're still half asleep." Then Nina walked around the corner in a wedding dress, and he goes, "You really are getting married, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You're off your head." Walking through the casino, he was about 20 paces behind, just shaking his head with embarrassment. And yeah, it was a cool day, and he was the best man. It was great. Obviously, I had my dad with me alongside being as my
It's
best
it's a great story, and I've got to say again, as a fighter, you've got to have that support from your partner, and it's not going to be possible to achieve what you've achieved if you didn't have the backing and the support of your wife and your family.
Yeah.
So, fascinating stuff, and we'll be back with a lot more of it right after the break.
Danny Green is your new world champion.
2002, you've got 6 fights lined up, or you had 6 fights for the year, and of course you mentioned Vegas. Now Vegas is the mecca, of course. When you know you're fighting in Vegas, you know you're pretty much arrived. What was the feeling like with that Vegas battle?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was a big thing to go over to Las Vegas and be under the spotlight. And but although I was an undercard fighter, I wasn't really that well known at all. But I put on a good display, and I took out a guy with some really clean punches and displayed a good kit of punches. And I wasn't overawed, although there was hardly any crowd there because it was undercard. There was a lot of pressure because it was being live back home, and I wanted to make a very good impression with all the people over there in America. And I did that, and I was really happy. And I think that was my 10th fight over there in Las Vegas against Ron Roberts, and it was an incredible feeling. Although nothing matches the fights back home because the crowds and the support I had back in Australia is so much more phenomenal. But to be there in Las Vegas and then after the night of the fight, we sat at one of the bars there, my father and Nina, and watched the Mickey Ward Arturo Gatti fight, the first fight that was just one of the best fights that's ever been in boxing. And I just took part, won my first fight in Las Vegas, was watching one of the best fights that's in the history of the sport live on TV, one of the big pubs in Vegas. It was just a great feeling to be over there.
And the great feeling kept going because the next big one was in Perth. And that fight was Nico Tariri. That was a win for you as well. So what an induction and what a launching for the Green Machine. Yeah,
it was great. The whole night was a success, and I put him away in the 3rd round, and it was I would have liked him to got back up after I put him down because I wanted to finish him with some clean shots, and that's not to say being bad or anything, but I wanted to really make a spectacular show. But I did what I had to do, got the victory, and moved on. And then it was on to bigger and better things, and the longer the fights went on, and the bigger they got, the better Green Machine Promotions got, and then obviously Molly's moved on to take over as my manager. When I formed a new team in 2005, and he's done a terrific job, and he's always been there for me, and he's just a very staunch bloke.
2003, 5 fights, and there was 5 different locations. There was Melbourne, Perth, Penrith, obviously New South Wales, and of course Germany. So you were moving around a bit. But
then Montreal.
Montreal as well, yep, sure. The first three, Brad Mayo in Melbourne, obviously he's a tough campaigner and he's always going to be there, you know, for the bout. Then you had the fight in Perth and of course Delisle, the revenge from the amateur days. So he was one loss you had in the amateurs.
He was one of the losses, yep.
So
it was a 1 point loss. It was a very close loss, and I've always thought, oh, I won that fight, and he knows he won it. So you know, we've always, you know, oh, come on, mate. But you know, we're good mates too. But no, he won the fight. It was very close. Could have gone either way. He got the decision, and I didn't.
That was in the amateurs, but in the pro ranks, you got your revenge.
Got my revenge, and it was, you know, we weren't as close back then. We knew each other because we both surfed, and we were both similar blokes, just, you know, laid back and down to earth guys. And a bit of a rivalry started forming in the professional ranks. He had his mob, I had mine, and we started building up. And he, you know, he'd beaten some good guys, and very tough bloke. And the general consensus of the crowd was, this is going to be a cracker of a fight. They're both walk-up fighters who are going to go to war, and that's exactly what happened. And it was my first pay-per-view as well, so it was on Main Event, and you know, it was on TV in the pubs and clubs, and it was just, you know, it was a big thing for me. It was my 15th bout. I'd had 14-0s and all KOs up to that point.
Yep.
And just digressing before I go, my 8th fight was against a Fijian called Iobi Ladua, and my daughter Chloe was due to be born that night of the fight, and I said, there's no way, and that was when she was overdue. So I said, I'm fighting live on TV. This is how I'm earning my living. I have to fight. I can't not fight because I'm making a living. But I want to be there for the birth of my daughter. And the doctor came back and said, well, mate, we're going to have to wait until Friday for the night of the fight. I said, no way. I said, Doc, kind of put my arm around him and said, Doc, come on, come back with some good news, please. You know, and also my wife had gone overdue. So 2 weeks after, you know, the full term was not really considered healthy to some people. And I wanted my baby out of there before that. I didn't want any health risks or health scares. So I put my arm around him and said, come on, Doc, come back with some good news and give me a bit of a squeeze. He said, you can do it, mate, go on. 5 minutes later, he come back and...
You're trying to, you know, adjust the will of God there a little bit, Dan.
Well, he came back and he said, we've got some good news, Mr. Green. So my landing on the dock had the desired effect. My daughter was born on Monday night, 11:58 p.m. And it was an amazing experience, probably the best thing in my life to that date. I can't explain the feeling it was. And then to go out, you know, 4 nights later and put Iobi Ladua away in a spectacular knockout. You know, they got the Friday night player of the week on the sports show, and it was a cracker of a knockout. And the interviewer was saying, where are you from here? And I said, I just want to go home to see my daughter. He kept asking me. I said, I just want to get out of here. Thanks everyone. I'm going home to see my daughter Chloe. Thanks a lot.
Well, I know all his family and friends back in WA.
Oh, break! Don't punch, step back. Break!
They'll be hoping for another early night.
They would no doubt be enjoying the action here from La Montage. Danny Green with the right hand, and the Fijian has gone to sleep.
What a tremendous right, short right hand. Danny Green.
He said he was going to deliver, did the Green Machine, and deliver he did.
I want to ask you about Chloe because we've spoken about her, and you know, she's got a little bit of the Danny in her. She likes to work the pads a little bit, and she likes to get around and throw some punches. And of course, I was going to ask you obviously about Archie too, your son, but with both of your children, if they said, Dad, I like what you did, I want to try that. Would you let him?
I think Chloe's going to do it more than Archie at the moment. Yeah. She's 6 and she's got so much spark and so much life, and she's just the best little kid. She's just unbelievable. She's everything I'd wish for and more. And she's funny. She's the funniest person I know, and she genuinely is the funniest person I've ever met. She makes me laugh constantly. And Nina, my wife, shakes my head. She says, "What do you see? What do you find her so funny?" I said, "Because she knows how to make people laugh. She cracks me up, and she's just crazy."
But would you let her fight?
No.
Would you let her get in? And
no, she can throw a better left hook than most fighters I know. She really lets them go, and she's got these heavy hands. Yeah. She's 6 years old, but I'm teaching her how to box. I'm teaching her how to throw punches. I'm teaching her self-defense, because in this day and age, I want her, when she's old enough, if someone, wants to have a go at her, she drops one on them. I want them to stay hit, and I think it's going to be that way. She's got very heavy hands, and she loves the fact that she's starting to learn and throw, and she throws great punches for a little 6-year-old girl. It's incredible. But if she wanted to fight inside the boxing ring, I'd be strongly opposed to it. Yeah. And if my son wanted to fight, I'd be opposed to it as well, because I don't want to see my son get hit. But at the same token, if he wants to do it, if that's what he chooses to do, although I'd say, mate, Something else you want to do? I don't care what my kids do, as long as they're happy. If they don't want to do any sport, or they want to get them heavily involved in sport because it's a great outlet. But if they don't want to play sport, it won't bother me, as long as they're happy and they're content in their lives. But if Archie wants to do it, I'll stand beside him.
Yep. All right, we move on. Bayer. Now that's when the controversy really surrounded you, and you made the papers, made the news, and it was, your world title quest was there for all to see.
To get the world title shot in Germany, we got paid peanuts to go there. It wasn't about the money once again. It's I want to win the world title, and I'll do it for free.
Yep.
And it was we're in Germany. I took my good friend and sparring partner Paul Miller, because he's a southpaw, and his nickname was Mr. Magic for a good reason, because he was a very skillful fighter. Although he didn't have the experience of he wasn't even pro yet, but he had no experience as a professional fighter. But as an Olympian and as a very, very strong and talented amateur fighter, he was very similar to Bayer. He was a very technically skillful fighter, but he was also a southpaw, and he was extremely good sparring for me, and it paid off because, my performance against Bayer, I went out there, and from round one I knew that I said to my corner, I said to my brother and my dad, I said, when the bell goes, I'm going to run straight at him and just throw a bomb. I'm just going to throw a big punch. I'm just going to let him know. If it lands, it lands, all beautiful. If it doesn't, well, I'm just going to let him know that I'm here to win. I'm not here to, pussyfoot around. I'm not here to just partake in participate in a world title fight. I'm here to win it. That title's mine. I was so hungry, and they didn't expect. They picked a guy who was 16-0 with 16 KOs as a voluntary defence. Because I hadn't gone past 8 rounds, I thought, we'll get past him. He's not that skillful. He's just a banger. They didn't realise that I could, box very well as well as that. So, first round I went out there and I threw one from the boots, and I missed him by about that far. Didn't even go near him, and I turned to my corner and kind of smiled as I said, "There it is, that's the one." And my mate, and I was just enjoying it so much. It was so intense, but it was a world title fight. But I wanted to enjoy it. And my mates Brooksy and Wizard somehow snavelled their way, and they were sitting on the ring mat like this, watching the fight. I said, "You couldn't have got a better seat in the house if you tried." And I remember going back, and I remember consciously putting myself on the ropes, and I was going to give them a mule kick from behind, just to let them know I knew they were there. And this is a minute into a world title fight, but this is what I'm thinking. And then 20 seconds later, bang, Bayer's on the canvas. I dropped him with an absolute bomb, and my aim in the fight was to go out there and just to destroy him. And so round one, he's on the canvas, and I freaked out, and he'd actually stiffened up. He stiffened up, and his eyes rolled back, and I walked off back to the neutral corner, thinking, just knocked out the world champion. He's out, because he actually was knocked out for a second. And I turn around, he's up, and he's on his feet, and the count was about 25 seconds long. They gave him a bit of a hand there.
You got to love the hometown. You got to love the hometown advantage.
I'm not even going to go there, but he had a very long count, and so he got up, and then I hopped him in again. Round two, bang, dropped him again. I thought, I'll knock this guy out in 2 rounds. This is better than I thought it was going to be, and no one. The stadium was silent. It was incredible.
Second time. The champ goes down for a second time and has the count put on him.
And then in round two, in a minute 47, I think it is, I've thrown a left punch, a left jab, and I've collected him here. And then I spin him off the ropes, and I've come and I've hit him with a left hook as well. And that's the initial 2 punches that opened the cut up on him. And from then I worked the cut, and then I won round 3 clearly. Round 4 they gave to him. I don't know how the judges gave it to him, but they were trying to even the score up. And by now I'm 5 points up after round 5. After round 4, going to round 5. That was when the trouble started. The referee still hadn't called the punch as a cut. He still didn't say it was a cut. It was like, this is absurd. And all he needed to do, I mean, really, in my opinion, I should have been told. I think, my coach should have said to me, Greenie, go out there and just jab it out. Just jab the round. Stay away, jab the round. You're so many points up, you can't lose. Jab the round out and we're going home. But, I was given, I'm a fighter, and you're so revved up, you're so pumped, you just want to go out there and destroy him. Yeah. So I think I should have been told maybe to just go and jab the round out there. His eyes hanging out of its head. They're going to stop the fight. This fight cannot continue.
So that's the hindsight of this whole situation, is you feel that perhaps there was a little bit of a lack of guidance in how the tactics of the fight went?
That's the way the fight went. Who knows? My corner, my coach was pumped up as well. He didn't realise it was going to. I don't think he realised it was going to be like this either. This quickly and this brutally. So maybe he was carried away as well with the whole thing. But I feel I should have. Hindsight, I should have been told to go out there and jab the round, and after they're going to stop the fight because this can't continue. I mean, there's blood. I'm covered in his blood, and it's a severe cut where he's actually his forehead starting to droop down. And so we clashed. He tried to throw me to the ground. I threw him to the ground because I was stronger. I just overpowered him, threw him to the ground. The referee took me to the corner, and then said, "Mate, settle down, watch him." Blah blah. Then turned to the ringside judge and said, "Cut, headbutt," and I've gone off. I've yelled and swore at him and said, "You joking."
That's when the emotion took over and it's just gone out the window.
But then I calmed down. No, then I calmed down. I said, "That's it, calm down." Went back to work and then landed a punch that would have just about knocked a lot of guys out, and he took it very well. Went back to work, and then that's when we clashed heads. And he was in close, and he was all like an octopus hanging on to me, and I wanted to throw him off and throw a left hook because the reason I was beating him was because I was so brutal and I was so rough, and I was just, I was just going not crazy, but I was there to he could feel the animosity in my punches. The intent was there I was throwing him around like a rag doll, and I was just throwing him off and punching him left, right and centre. It's a fight. He's trying to knock me out, I'm trying to knock him out, and I'm doing my job, and I'm doing it well.
And it's the ultimate prize on the line, which
world
is, of course,
title.
is the world title.
And so then we were tangled up, and he's a southpaw, and I wanted to throw the left hook and land a left hook, but unfortunately he was hanging on, so I had to get a bit of leverage. And when I came up, I was careless, I was reckless, yes, but no way intentionally did I headbutt him. We clashed heads, but my head just touched here, never went near his eye, and it was on the replay for the whole world to see.
Yep.
The ref called it off, but my intentions and my purpose was clear about the fact that after a split second after we clashed heads, I've landed the hook that I tried to land. It landed, it was a sweet shot, and then I threw an uppercut and just missed him with it. So the intent was there, it was a clear combination.
It was more the dealing with him being the awkward southpaw and trying to cope with,
and I was using my strength and my aggression, and it was a careless move, but by no means should it have been deemed as disqualifiable, which the referee later said. So then the doctor then stopped the fight, and the funny thing was the fight should have been stopped before because we never touched heads. So then the doctor, that's it, the Germans had their chance. I gave them a chance, unfortunately. Germans took the doctor said no, call the fight off, and you can see the doctor whisper in his ear, "Don't worry, I'll sort this out." It was like he said, "Don't worry, I'll sort this out." You can't hear it, but he's trying to pull a Swifty. The Germans are notorious for it. So then they call the fight off, the referee comes over, he says, "I'm going to take 1 point off." Then he walks over and he sees the scorecards, realises doesn't take enough off. I'm still way up on points because I dropped him round 1 and 2. They're both 2 point round advantages. He then comes over and takes 2 points off. But what do you mean? What's going on here? You can only take a point off, or you can only take 2 points off. You either say 2 points or 1 point, but you don't go 1 point and then come over and take 2 points off. It's just unheard of. Then he's saying we're going to scorecards. He says the foul, and it's on TV for everyone to see. The foul was not flagrant enough for me to disqualify the offending fighter. We are going to the scorecards, and he said that twice. And he also said, "I'm the referee here. I'm in charge. I'm the one in charge," because they were trying to persuade him. The ringside officials were trying to persuade him. The Germans were trying to coax him into folding. In the end, he folded. The referee folded, and he accepted what they said. They're going to disqualify me because the second cut was caused by a headbutt. There is no second cut. It's only one cut. You can see it as clear as day. And my head didn't touch his eye. So it was complete and utter ridiculous, a complete and utter ridiculous decision that was handed down. And as you can tell, it hasn't really annoyed me.
Just a little bit of emotion there. Okay, so after Bayer, it's time to reassess, time to get the green machine back on track, refocus, realign yourself. Eric Lucas was the next cab off the rank for you. Now, he went the distance with Bayer. He went the distance with Roy Jones Jr. You stopped him in 6. Fair effort.
In Montreal, 20 degrees below zero, 20th of December the fight was. Incredibly amazing experience for me personally. It was just, got out of the plane from the airport, and there was just cameras everywhere. In Montreal, Eric Lucas was a superstar, so it was a big deal. And then to put him away in 6 rounds and to pretty much destroy him was a massive achievement for me personally. And our tactics for the fight was, we know Lucas is a rugged guy. He's going to come forward and trying to break me down. So we were aware that we might lose the first 4, come home the next 8, the next 4. So, and then after round 8, let's try and finish him, put him away.
Well, all ended after 6, and
I was down after 2. I was down after round 2, and a lot of people don't realise this, but the turning point in that fight, I think, was round 4. My dad picked it up and he said to me, "It's the best punch I've thrown as a pro and probably the most effective, and turned the tide in a fight, which then turned the tide in my career." And I agree with him. Lucas threw an overhand right, and I've rolled under it and come under the solar plexus with a right to the under his hook. So I've rolled under and gone boom at the same time.
Yep.
So I've timed, I've waited for it, and then gone bang, double the power, and then come with the left hook. But that right to the stomach really affected him and really slowed him down, and that turned the tide. And I threw a big left hook after that. That hurt him. And then round 5 I was all over him. Round 6. I destroyed him, and to have him quit, he was on his knee. He got dropped and he was on his knee. He got up, he was sitting on one knee, and the ref was counting. He got to round 8, to the count of 8. And Lucas said, "No more." And after that, it was funny. I was voted the best puncher for the super middleweight division in the world by the Bible of Boxing, the Ring magazine, in 2005 and 2006. 2 years running, I got voted the best puncher in the world. So that was a big achievement. And Eric Lucas said after that fight, he said, "Danny Green's not the biggest puncher I've faced," which is a strange thing to say. He said, he wasn't the biggest puncher I've ever faced, but he hurt me more than anyone's hurt me before.
That's just sort of a contradiction in terms.
It is a contradiction,
there,
but it's what he was saying was a compliment.
Yeah.
He was saying, he hurt me the most I've ever been hurt before.
I suppose it's a combination of perfect timing, with the right amount of power, put in the wrong spot for him, but the right spot for you.
Yeah, placement and timing and everything, and I really hurt him. And
so that's got to be a huge confidence boost, knowing that you've stopped a guy that's gone the distance with Roy Jones.
He defended his title 3 times.
And a really good scalp to have.
Yep.
But we move on to 2004. It was only 2 fights for 2004 that you had, and there was obviously the massive health scare there with the bout with Sean Sullivan from New Zealand. 10 long rounds, but after 6 you don't remember much after that. Now you ended up in all sorts of bother after that bout.
Before the fight, 9 days before the fight, I woke up at 4 a.m. in the morning in Sydney when I was training. My throat, my chest, my tongue, my lips, my face was swelling. I thought I was suffering a stroke. I had no idea what I was going through. It was weird. So I did what I always do, which normally for me fixes everything. I went and had a hot shower. So didn't work. I looked in the mirror. I had a head that had been stung by a swarm of wasps. I drove myself to the emergency hospital just down the road at RPH straight away because I thought I was having a stroke. Yeah. When I got there, they said, "Whoa!" They admitted me straight away, knocked me out, put me under, sedated me. Woke up the next morning. They said, "You've suffered a severe allergic reaction to something. You might have been bitten. It might have been food. We don't know, but you've had a severe allergic reaction." They said, "Find out what it is, do all the tests, and go home." So I went home in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. That afternoon, I'm in a heavy sparring session at the gym. I should have called the fight off there and then, but I'm very stubborn, I'm very silly. But I also told Jeff. Jeff knew that I was crook, and I guess together we said, "No, you'll be right. It's okay," because I'm stubborn and I think I could handle everything. Got to Perth, physically and mentally felt great, but there was obviously something wrong, something that had still been affecting me from that time I was in hospital. And people said it was the weight, but it wasn't the weight because we weighed in at catch weight. So I was 79 kilograms, so I was 3 kilos over my normal weight as a fighter. But it was the fact that it was 43 degrees outside that afternoon. Inside the stadium, under those lights, packed stadium, 5,500 people, minimum 55 degrees under those lights. It was boiling hot. The air conditioning in the venue had broken down. And before I went out, my urine was the colour of beer. So I was dehydrated before I even got to the boxing ring, but I felt great.
Yeah.
I punched the clappers out of Sean Sullivan for 5 rounds. He's like the rubber man. He just can't be hurt. He's incredible. He took so much punishment, but obviously the power wasn't there. My full power wasn't there, but he took enough punishment for 5 men. After round 5, I don't recollect anything. I have no recollection. I was walking back to the wrong corner on occasions. I was as white as a sheet. I was hyperventilating after round 5 in between rounds. I couldn't ingest water because of my hyperventilation. Yeah. My corner should have known that something was up. Instead of telling me to have a rest, have a break for a round or two and just go out there and hold, or go out there and move, or go out there and jab, I was told to go out and throw non-stop punches. Even round 9, after round 9, going to the last round, I won every round. I hadn't lost a round. Yeah. I should have been told, relax, take it easy, but after round 5 or round 6, I should have been told to have a couple of rounds off, get your breath back. There were clear signs. I was nearly falling over, I was stumbling, I wasn't coherent. There was clear signs that I was in major trouble, but my corner didn't pick it up. I was told to go out and throw non-stop punches in round 10. As soon as the bell went, I vomited and collapsed and was escorted from the ring, and then went into had severe dehydration and was rushed to hospital. I was in a severe, in a bad way. And, a lot of people said the doctors ringside and one of a very respected doctor and former doctor and chiropractor who was with me and part of my team, Noel Patterson, said it was the worst case of heat stroke he'd ever seen. And there was a real possibility that I could have lapsed into a coma and could have died.
And that took its toll in 2004 with only 2 fights. You came back well, you went to the States, campaigned over there for a bit, and had a very interesting sparring session with James Lights Out Tony.
He was due to fight for the heavyweight world title in 2 months' time. I went down the gym to train him at Wildcard Boxing Gym down there. And 3 times in a row he didn't turn up. And Jeff Fennick said to me, he said, "Do you want to spar James Toney? He's down the gym." Now me being a fighter and a fighter's fighter, old school fighter, I said, "Of course I'll spar him, it'd be great. He's a legend, I love watching him fight." He's heavyweight though. I don't think if I was a coach, I wouldn't ask my fighter if he's only a super middleweight if he wanted to fight a heavyweight fighter who's notorious for knocking guys out in sparring sessions. But anyway, that's life, that's mercy. Yeah, no worries, let's do it. We got to the gym. 3 days I'd been turned down, he didn't turn up, and one of the guys at the gym said, "We can't fit James's head inside the head guard because of the steroids." So he knew he was on the gear. It was like, and 2 months later he won the world heavyweight title and he got stripped because of steroids.
Yeah,
so the signs were there that I shouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
But me being me, I said, "Yeah, let's do it, it'll have fun." The third last day I said to his coach, Freddie Roach, I said, "Freddie, if James doesn't turn up tomorrow, tell him I'm going to turn his lights out." Now I said that as a joke. His name is James Lights Out Tony's a nickname, so I said as a joke, I'm going to turn his lights out, then laughed and walked off. Well, Freddie Roach just told him like it was serious. I'm sure he did. He's told him, "Mate, this guy's called you out, James." Being an idiot, James. I think Freddie Roach has obviously been a goose. Has tried to tell James that I've called him out. Well, James Toney, there's a massive crowd at the gym. I'm wondering what's going on here. I'm in the gym. I'm in the ring with my shirt off, and I'm dripping wet, 80 kilos, pasty white. Haven't been in the sun for about a year, and like a greyhound. In walks James Toney with his own rap song blaring over the stereo. Someone was in his toilet, he went and threw him out, kicked him out of his toilet. I'm thinking, whoa, he's not in a good mood, what have I done? and I'm winking to the guys with me and I'm thinking, this is going to be a lot of fun. And round 1 started and he just about tore my head off. And I would have knocked a lot of guys out. Luckily I got a very good chin. Because he threw an uppercut that just about, the reach, the flip top head, just about did that to me. And I remember thinking, whoa, it's on for young and old. And I stood toe to toe for 7 rounds. After the sparring session finished, he threatened to kill me, he threatened to shoot us all. Went crazy, and then I was really disappointed with the way he behaved.
read some very uncomplimentary comments after, but I looked at the footage of that, and looking at the footage of it, he has got a very quick jab, and he moves quite well for a big man.
One of the greatest fighters of the modern era, James Toney. He's a multiple world champion in different divisions, and the thing that frustrated him was most was he got this skinny bag of bones from Australia, feeding it to him left, right and centre and out punching him 2-1 and he couldn't knock me out, so he's devastated and I was really enjoying it and I was having a ball.
Come on, biatch! Come on, boy! Come on, boy! Look at your boy! It's so terrible, man!
The big hamburgers you love, Joe.
I should look at my gun. Kevin, look at my gun.
Well, some interesting stuff and some great insights from Danny Green, and we'll be back with more right after the break. Next up was the fight with Omar Eduardo Gonzalez. Now he actually put you closer to the canvas than you've been for a while.
First time I've ever been dropped in boxing or anything ever. So I was dirty on myself. I stood square. People say I was a lucky puncher. It wasn't lucky. He landed a flush and he threw a bomb. And I've stood square, left hand down. I can just feel my dad thinking, put your left hand up, and he's lined it up and bang bang, and on the vision you can see it gets to here, and I'm too late to start reacting then, but it's like oh crack, and he's gone bop bop bang, and boom, I've dropped. I had no leverage. I was standing square. Maybe if I was standing more in a boxing stance, I might have been able to ride it out. Beautiful shot. But I've gone down and I've jumped up like a tennis ball, and I was up before the referee Charlie Lucas hit the count of one. It didn't hurt me as such. I wasn't rattled, but it dropped me. It was a clean shot, and I respect the guy. It was a great shot, and I'm glad he did it because it taught me a good lesson. But I ended up stopping the fight. We stopped in round 5. I won the fight, but it was frustrating.
It was a bit of a wake-up call, but you got the TKO. 2005, 3 fights. Was not a good start. Not a good start to the year with Bayer again.
The rematch with Bayer, I was 4-1 on to win that fight. Everyone expected me to wipe the floor with him. Credit where credit's due. Marcus Bayer psychologically overcame a massive hurdle. He was brutally beaten in that fight, yes. and psychologically would have scarred him. And he made a great comeback to even just to get back in with me. Showed that he's a worthy 3-time world champion. And I was obviously clearly well out of my division. I should have been light heavyweight as far back as then, but I had to strip and waste a lot of weight to get down that limit, and I had no energy during the fight. And Jeff and I guess we were the cracks had formed well and truly, and we weren't clicking. And
why that split with Fennick? Just summarise that for the people that haven't probably heard of it.
I lost the fight. One judge had it a draw, one judge had me losing by 1 point in Germany, and in the last round I came out and dropped him, and was that close, was that far away from pulling off a dramatic final round KO to win the world title again, and it was just incredible. And to have won the interim world title against Lucas and to back up and win it again, I was one punch away from being victorious, and he hung on. Credit where credit's due. Bayer was smart. He hung on for the last round, and he was a tough bloke. And he won the fight, and it was very close. I think if the fight was anywhere else in the world, the decision would have gone my way. But I don't kind of hold any grudge towards him or boxing about that fight, because he got the decision. He fought well, and I got a lot of respect for him coming back. And Jeff we went back to Australia. Jeff went to America. I went to Australia, and then Jeff was hooked up. Before we went to Germany, Jeff was hooked up with Mike Tyson, training Mike Tyson, and was looking to guide him in his comeback. And he wanted me to go and live in America with Mike Tyson. He said, Greenie, I've got the opportunity to set my family up and my future up and make millions of dollars with Mike Tyson, and I'm going to stay in America. I want you to come over and be in America with me, mate. I've been dreading your call, but all the time Jeff said he's going to come back. As soon as I call, he'll be back in Australia in a week. I'm with you, Greenie, and we're going to, we will rebuild and get back to top. But Jeff chose his path, and he made his choice. And it's funny the fact that he got upset later on when the career with Tyson went nowhere, as I told Jeff it wouldn't. He got upset and had a fair few negative things to say about me, which I think is frustrating, because I acted with honour and integrity throughout our whole career. And even when Jeff left me, I didn't begrudge him. I said, mate, good luck to you and good luck to your family. I wish you all the best. Jeff made his choice. We had a great time together while it lasted. But he made his play. He went and chose Tyson, and that's cool. And I had to make my play, and I had to get my career back on track, and went and got a new coach and formed a whole new team, and a great strength and conditioning team as well with Craig Catterick, Hayden Knowles, and Kevin Ivins, and Dr. Steve McNamara, who have a company called fastforfootball.com. Great bunch of blokes, and my new trainer, the Cuban Ismael Salas, the great Cuban trainer who'd 5 world champions prior to me, WBA trainer of the year. So clearly the runs were on the board, and we always said we're going to win a world title, and we went on and we did.
Tell me, speaking about keeping your egos in check and all the rest of it, you're fighting in Perth, Mundine and yourself on the same card. Anthony Mundine, he wants to be the main event. You let him in front of your home crowd on one of your own promotions. I
fought Carino Garcia, who was the current light heavyweight Mexican champion going into the bout. Beaten 5 former world champions. Had a record pretty bad to start with. Lost his first 18 fights. He was sailing across the river from Mexico to the States on a raft made of tyres to get a feed. He'd fight just to get some food. Then he started, being trained, had a manager, and had very good ability. Beat five former world champs. Mundine was fighting a guy that wasn't as much of a shock as a threat to me, and also the guy fighting was a very good puncher and had a great chin, and he proved that by going 10 hard, solid rounds with me. Before the fight, Choc was, as usual, it's all about him. The whole show revolves around him. The whole world seemed to revolve around him at that time, and so at least in front of the camera. And he said, "I'm the main event. I'm the man here. This is my town. I'm the man wherever I go, and I run the show." And I said, "Well, I'm the main event. This is my town, and you're gonna learn that soon." And he goes, "But no, it won't happen." So I said, "I'm going to concentrate on winning against Carino Garcia. See, have the main event." But I always knew in the back of the mind I was going to do something to trump him. I just, he won't have the final say. So I had my fight. I quickly raced back to the showers, got showered, and got ready for Mundine to come out. Mundine came out. They introduced his opponent, introduced my Mundine. They had the both anthems, and then just as he was about, the referee was giving them instructions to touch gloves, come out fighting, which I don't know why the referee has to say that, because the fighters know anyway. No. But the Fox crew running the show, they were bumped out the way, and they were, "What's going on?" They were, boom, I think they were shoved out the way. The people running the sound and the lighting, they were shoved out the way, and no one knew what was going on. We didn't tell anyone, and then the big lights come on, the song started again, and I came out to the ring just as he was about to start fighting, and the crowd erupted. It went absolutely crazy, and it had the desired effect.
Why you have a little bit of bad feeling?
He got his way. He spat the dummy like a child and got his way with the main event. So I thought, I'll just get one back here, and it worked a treat because he
and
was
the battle continues.
Lashing throats, and I wouldn't even look at him because I was having too much fun laughing and enjoying the whole thing. And
the battle continues.
It was cool, it was a bit of drama, and it was a bit of fun too, and it worked. It was, it made for good TV, I guess.
Well, it certainly hyped up the May Mundine time, 2006, and bit of a serious. We take this conversation, I suppose, to a bit of a serious level now, because I watched that fight, as did millions of people, and for me, I saw you that night, and I said, "That's not the Danny Green that I've seen before." Yeah,
it was a very, very difficult time in my life, because it was obviously a shocking time in my family's life, and apart from the fact I was fighting, well out of my weight division, I shouldn't have been fighting at super middleweight, but there is no excuses, because that was where the opportunity was to make that sort of coin. So, excuse me, that was the weight division, and I knew it, and I chose it. So I made that choice, but I had to strip 10 kilograms, and by the time I got near 70, I had to get down to 76.2. Well, about 79 kilograms, I had to start shedding about 2.75 kilograms of muscle. Yeah. So that's hard when you actually have to waste muscle, and you have to, you have to get your body to eat itself away to make weight, but also to train at the optimum level. For 3 weeks, I boiled myself in a bath every single night before the fight, so I could boil off dinner, and I literally mean boil, because I was sweating profusely for 45 minutes after the bath.
Well, that just for the uninitiated, that's putting yourself into a steaming hot bath, hot water, in an attempt to raise your heart rate, speed up your metabolism.
Heart rate was around 160,
so getting the heart rate right up there, which is not probably good to do.
Not after training twice a day.
Exactly.
Those 2 days, that day.
So I just wanted to be clear for the people watching, that they understand exactly what you're trying to achieve by jumping in a boiling hot bath, heart rate up, speed up your metabolism, wasting away your body fat. So
so I'd stand on the scales every morning, and obviously look at the weight and go, rightio, now I can have breakfast. I've boiled dinner off, so I can wake up and have breakfast to give me some petrol, so I can eat and have some petrol for the day's work ahead.
Yep. And as if that wasn't enough, there was the tragedy with your niece.
Yeah, it was my little niece Sophie. She didn't wake up one morning, and to get the phone call, my mate Molly, and had to make that phone call, and your whole world just falls apart, and to realise that your brother, your own flesh and blood and his wife and their family are going through such insurmountable amounts of grief and shock, just tears your own heart out. To realise, just to think, trying to imagine, put yourselves in their shoes, to realise what they're going through is impossible, and it ripped our whole family apart, because we can see how much they've lost.
Yeah.
and we will never know how much they've lost.
And that tragedy occurred how many
About
days
9 weeks out from the fight,
Yeah.
and I guess from that moment on, focus shifted from beating Anthony Mundine to winning a fight to try and shine some light for my family for a couple of hours, just to maybe bring a smile to their face. And I punished myself in the ring and doing that work, and I just switched off and then I guess tried to hide the grief and try to punish myself in the ring and the training to try and hide from the grief and trying to suck. You try and suck all that pain out of your brother and their family and out of your own family, but you can't hide from it. And it's something that I'm very, very proud of the way that my brother's conducted himself, the way that he's conducted himself for his family and for his daughter Sophie. Her memory will live on forever. And she was with me that night in the fight, but I guess subconsciously I blocked the whole time of my life out. And there is no excuses for the fight. I lost the fight against Anthony Mundine because he hit me more than I hit him, and I tipped my hat off to him, and that's why I lost the fight. Not the weight, not the fact that we were going through, and my family and myself were going through, my brother's going through hell. That wasn't the reason that I lost the fight. I lost the fight because Anthony beat me. He was a better fighter on the night. But it definitely, it's hard when you're in tears in the change rooms before the fight, and put a photo of Sophie and tied it up, and so she was with me, and she was on my left hand, obviously my main weapon. But
that was inside your glove.
Inside the glove.
You told me that you actually put that photo inside your glove, and there's a lot of I suppose mental trauma involved in even just doing that process.
I didn't have any nerves, not 1 ounce of nerves. I hopped in the boxing ring and there was no nerves, which is a very strange and different feeling. I've never had nerves before a fight, and I didn't have any nerves. I just wanted to get the fight, so let's get this fight on. Round 1 went, and I expelled all my energy in 1 round. I had no energy left. I had nothing in the tank. And when you're travelling on less than 3% body fat, and you have absolutely zero fat stores to draw from, when I've wasted muscle to get to that weight, you have no petrol. It's like trying to drive, from one place to another with a litre of petrol in the tank. You just can't do it. And I'm proud of the fact that I lasted the distance because I had nothing in the tank, and the fact that I absorbed a lot of punishment, and my will is I don't think many people have that will to win like I have, and that's why I've achieved that. And Choc beat me, and he threw some beautiful punches, and I was out there trying to beat him, with everything I had, but it just wasn't good enough, and it wasn't enough on the night.
I just want to talk to you a little bit about your superstitions, your tattoos. There's a lot of dimension to yourself.
We don't actually have. I think it's only a 2-hour time slot we've got here, so we don't have enough time to explain fully what it's all about. But I think it's about. I'm just superstitious. I don't.
You're a superstitious
I don't walk
man.
under ladders. I don't walk under. I don't. When you got a power pole and there's a pole there, I walk around the power pole. I don't even go into that line there because it's weird. It's obviously a mental thing, and a lot of people say I'm pretty. I'm way out there. So. Black cats, when they run across the road, I'm horrified. I'm like, oh, I just saw a black cat. It grinds me. And 3 is my favourite number. If, say, you said to me, oh, I blew a tyre when I was driving to this interview, I'd be like finding a piece of wood, and I'd go, right, touch wood, but I don't just touch wood because I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to blow a tyre on the way home. I don't just touch wood once. I've got to touch it 3 times. Now, if you said to me I blew a tyre, I might touch wood 3 times. But if you said you blew a tyre and crashed into another car, it's all shivers. That's bad. I've got to touch wood 9 times because 3 threes is 9.
Danny Green,
I've got 3 cards.
Worry me a bit about the superstition stuff.
I've got 3 cards, an endless deck of 3s, because my favourite number is 3. So I've got an endless deck of 3s that surround my 3 initials, and that's my protection. And if I listen to a radio or turn the TV up, it's always in a multiple of 3, always. And that's just like I put my hand. No one knows, but when I get in the ring, I bounce off the ropes 1 time, then I bounce that one, another time, then I bounce back at this one 3 times. People think I'm warming up. I'm doing it because it's superstitious. I get over the 3rd rope. I'll put my right hand in the glove first. I wrap my right hand up. I do all sorts of crazy things. I wear the same mouth guard. I had the same mouth guard for 7 years. Had holes in it. I don't know how I didn't lose any teeth because I was superstitious. But I lost it. That's the only reason I still haven't got it today. It's crazy.
The significance of the tattoos, and obviously your daughter's tattoo on your arm there.
Yeah.
You draw a lot of strength from that. When you're down in a fight, you look at that, and that gives you that bit of extra kick, bit of a.
10 seconds ago in the world title fight, and I knew I was going to be victorious. I kissed that and was pointing to it, so she knew I was pointing to it and kissed that. Because it was a tribute to my daughter. And hopefully when she's older, she'll understand that more when she's my age, and she can look back and go, wow, it's cool. The old man really loved me. And yeah, the tattoos, I love tattoos. You know, like just because I have tattoos doesn't mean I'm a you know, a thug or whatever. You know, I think today's day and age, the whole
it's trendy now.
Everyone's well, it was almost trendy, but I've got you know, so they hurt too. You know, people say tattoos. You know, you see guys, oh, did that hurt, mate? And you see a guy go, no, it didn't hurt. I think, come on, mate, it kills. Bloody hurts.
Now you love your surfing. You love your surfing and everything that goes with it, but there was around the time after Mundine and after your fight, you pulled a man from the surf, made headlines, and that was an extraordinary feat.
It was. I was at the right time at the right place for this guy because he was going under. Like he was seriously, you know, he was in trouble. He had, his clothes had been ripped. He was naked when I got him because all his clothes had been ripped off of him. But he was caught in he was in a cycle. He was getting smashed and then pulled back out, smashed, pulled back out, so he couldn't get washed in. So he was in a bad way, and he was very lucky that someone was there, not to run down and then to jump out and go out and grab him. I took a board, then put him on the board, grabbed him, and just plucked him. And he was really struggling. And he said he'd said his prayers underwater, and he was pinned in his little because he was pinned to the bottom of the sand. He'd grinded all the skin off, and he had grazes all over him, and put him on the board. And I didn't realise, and I waited for a wave, and I pushed him in. And then when I've pushed him in, my hand's gone on his bare ass. I went, oh, hang on, mate, hang on. And then I just body surfed in. You know, by the time I got to him, he wasn't that far out, but he was in a cycle. Like I said, he just couldn't get out. It was a really big surf, but where he was just getting smashed. He was getting hammered.
Well, it was certainly an extraordinary feat, and I suppose it's all those years of surfing and living over in Perth and living a life that in the end has paid dividends, not only for you but for a fortunate young man. I'm
lucky to live on the ocean, and I've been surfing for 25 years, and I haven't been able to surf as much as I would like to because of boxing, but it's a sport that I love, and it's not a sport, it's a way of it's just it's a hobby, it's a passion, it's a way of life, and it's just, you can't explain it. It's such an exhilarating feeling. It's such a great feeling to go surfing, and also for me, it's a way to keep in touch with all my mates that that work. You know, when you get older, your lives kind of change and go different paths. But that's one way that going on a surf trip can keep you in touch and keep that bond that you have with your mates and my brother and all the boys. So it's great.
Well, Dan, outside of the boxing ring, and when you're not surfing, motorsport's a bit of a passion, and potentially, well, now you've got a lot of free time on your hands. Maybe there's going to be a little bit of play in the motorsport area?
It could be, mate. Yeah, I did an interview on the radio one day, and they said, what are you going to do after boxing? I said, something relaxing, like drag racing. I said, it's a joke. And I got out from the interview, and there was one of Australia's top racing outfits on the line saying, would you be interested in being a driver for our team, a profile driver? I said, I've never done it before. They said, the only way to learn is just jump in the hot seat. You know, we're talking about top door slammers, 6.5 second quarter miles, 380 k's an hour.
It's all reaction time. You know you've got the good reactions, and you're a bit of a petrol head, so there's a bit of a good fit there. There is, isn't there?
Well, my good mate of mine, Jeff McGlynn, and his company NRW built me this amazing XB, 74 XB coupe, and it's been fully restored, and it's got a 514 big block in it, and it's just the most amazing car. It's better inside than it is outside. And it's just an incredible car. But I've also got my GT at home that I fang around. I'm a Ford man. Go up to Barbagallo Raceway quite a bit and have a bit of fun up there. But you never know in the future. But I think my wife would prefer me to box in drag race, which is kind of.
Well, you've been KOing guys in the ring there. You can knock them out of contention on the quarter mile, and that'll be interesting.
Mate, that would, I guess, something to get the blood flowing. I'm pretty sure that would, mate.
It certainly will. 2007. Here we go. Paul Murdoch. Down in Melbourne, tough journeyman. He's fought for a world title himself. You did well, and in fact he retired after that fight, and that was really, you're getting serious again there with the fight game. The losses are behind you, and starting to seriously campaign for the world title now. Yeah,
I beat Delal. Delal was my first stepping stone back after moving to light heavyweight. He was my first official fight at light heavyweight, where I got ranked in the world, top 15 in the world. Yeah. And Jason fought Clinton Woods for the IBF world title before we fought, so he was still at the top of his game. And I put him away in the 9th round, and he needed 10 stabbles to close his head. Both eyes were nearly shut. Broke his nose bad. His ribs are cracked, and the guy's just so tough. And I was just hoping his corner would throw the towel in. Round 8, he stunned me with a really good shot, beautiful shot. Thought that's it. I want to step it up here and put him away in pretty devastating fashion. And it's funny, my retirement lunch in Sydney, Jason was there, and he was one of the last to leave. And myself and him were probably the drunkest. And when the Land Down Under come on, one of the boys from the restaurant put that on. He's got me up in his arms like a baby, cradled, he's swinging around. He's jumping up and down singing it. He's a terrific bloke. So that was a hard fight, but you know I needed to do that. And then against Murdoch, he'd fought Zolt Erdai for the WBO world title, you know, 6 months before I fought him as well. So in his previous second last fight before I got to him, he'd fought for the world title. So he was still at the top of his game. So to put him away and to blow him away in 2 rounds like I did was exhilarating, and we trained so hard for that fight. You know, he's a big, strong guy, Paul, and can punch, but you know, I blew him away in 2 rounds. He didn't have a chance, and you know that was a great feeling. And, you know, once again, Paul's a really nice bloke. He's a lovely person, but there was no stopping me on that night.
And there was no stopping you too when you stepped up against the American Otis Griffin. You know, 18 wins on the trot he had before he stepped in the ring with you.
After this fight, we're looking at fighting Antonio Tava for the IBO world title. Now, the IBO is a very lightly regarded world title. That wasn't what the motivation for fighting Tava was. It was the fact that it was Antonio Tava to get a good name on my scalp.
Yep.
He's a huge name in boxing, you
Yep.
know, and he's a great fighter. So I had to get through Griffin, and a smooth talking, you know, real cool cat from America. Used to play gridiron, and then went to boxing. Won Oscar De La Hoya's, you know, reality TV show. Really awkward guy with a really good left hand, a good left hook, and was a pretty wild fighter. Came to Perth, and the poor guy didn't know what hit him when he walked in the Challenge Stadium. There was no place like fighting at home.
This comes back to the fanatical Green Machine fans.
They're crazy.
And I think, you know, they've probably helped you over the hurdle a couple of times, but you know, he's walked in supremely confident with 18 wins. What did you think of those 18 wins before? Did you give him much credit? Or
Not
you didn't
really,
give much
no.
of
He's an awkward fighter, and he'd never faced someone of my calibre, and it was a step up for him. This was his chance. He was ranked in the top 15 in the world now, and this was his chance to get a world title fight. So he had to get through me, but he didn't have the same hunger I had. Especially, you know, even it was like it was the old dog teaching the young fella new tricks in hunger and desire and aggression, and he was blown away. But for a start, just walking into the arena, he was walking into not just one lion's den, he was walking into, you know, literally the whole zoo's den. It was crazy. He had, you know, elephants, monkeys, hippos, rhinos. He had them all there, all sorts.
It's all about your mates in Perth now.
Yeah. All the boys were there. It was great, and you know, a crazy crowd and a phenomenally fanatical crowd that just gave me such a lift. And I just don't know what to say to them. Just the best crowd you could ever wish for, and they gave me the most massive boost. And I think I would like to think I have the best fans that a fighter in the whole world has ever had. It's just incredible, and not just Perth but Australia-wide. I had such an amazing following because they were so loyal, and
their resolve never waned. They never jumped off the bandwagon. They were on the Green Machine bandwagon the whole way.
Had the same determination and discipline and loyalty that I had. It was great, and you know,
fantastic.
I always you know, never ever forgot that.
They rallied again for you against Stipe Drews, and that was the big world title shot. Obviously, you know, Antonio Tava, that didn't work out. So you've gone Stipe Drews, and he's come into your backyard, and well, Nina, again, you know, she was pregnant, and it was all happening that night for you.
Yeah, it was
world
incredible.
title night.
It was incredible. Little Archie, well, I found out was, you know, he's going to be Archie, but we didn't know boy or girl, but I knew it was a boy. Deep down I knew I knew my daughter was going to be a girl before she was born, and I knew Archie was going to be Archie when he came out. So it was just an incredible feeling, and the nerves of having a world title fight the same night my daughter's due to be born was overwhelming. But you know, Nina, once again, she played it tough, and she's staunch, and she hung in there, and she was ringside.
With Stipe, you only had one loss.
Yeah, one loss against Paul Briggs.
Yeah. So the Aussie hoodoo was already maybe planted there for him.
Yeah, you know, he was outboxing Briggsy handily, and then Briggsy landed a beautiful shot, and he just lost his mind. He went mad, and you know, 90 fights as an amateur, 10 losses, 90 victories as an amateur, 96 Olympian for Croatia, 6'5" southpaw, European professional champion, then going into my fight, a world champion. He was a current world champion after defeating
world
Branco.
champion,
So he was a defending world champion going into the fight with one loss out of 33 fights. So an incredibly gifted fighter. And I hired a sparring partner called Alexander Gurov, former European heavyweight, cruiserweight professional champion and world title challenger. Lost to Jean-Marc Mormac over in France for the WBA world title. Massive bloke, 6'5", strong as an ox, and could punch like a mule could kick. And I was manhandling him in training, and that 6 to 8 weeks training I had in the lead up to Drews, it doesn't matter who was in front of me or who I was fighting, there was no way I was winning. I promised Perth and Australia, bring a world title to Australia, and I promised I'd win it. And to do that, you know, I realised the magnitude of what I was about to enter into in this fight, and I realised that I had a lot riding on it, and you're not just pride, but, you know, a lot of, obviously, you know, a lot of potential future earnings, and it could have been the end of the road for me if I'd lost. I dare say it would have been the end of the road if I'd lost that fight. It was such a pressurised cabin I was, you know, cruising around in for weeks, but I just relaxed and I just enjoyed the whole process. Celeste and I were very confident. H-Man, we were very confident in winning the fight. You know, my assistant coach as well, another guy had been on board with me for a while. Dave Birchall, we knew what to do, my brother BG. You know, to blow away Drews and win nearly every round and to have him on the back foot the whole time, terrified of being knocked out. When the referee wrapped my gloves, signed the gloves before the fight, Celeste taped them up. Sometimes you tape your hands, they're not as good. Some other nights you tape them and they're like bricks. And this night, everything came together. The taping of my hands was just immaculate and they felt like bricks. They were weapons. And the guy signed them off, you know, to make sure there's not a horseshoe in them, said, "Oh, these are illegal, they're weapons, there's danger, they're nasty." Foreign bloke, and they were really, really dangerous. And Drew said after the fight to many guys, he said, "I've never been hit like that, I've never been hurt." And I made his eyes roll back in round 1, 2 and 3 with cracking shots. And he said I was being out jabbed by a 6-foot bloke when the jab's my best weapon. He said I couldn't believe it, but I wasn't being out jabbed. I was being hurt severely by his left hook and by his jab, and he said he was afraid. He actually said, "I've never been under that sort of pressure. I've never felt that aggression or animosity." So there was a lot of, you know, people you know that have said, you know, they would you know, saying, "Oh, that wasn't that great a fight," and what they don't realise is, and these are people, some of these people have never fought in their life. They don't realise they've never been punched before. They don't know what it's like. They don't know what it's like to be punched from me either. So they just don't get it.
The tone of a fight can be set from the opening seconds of the first round. And that's where resolves can be broken.
I broke his will and broke it hard early, and I knew that I had to keep going and just finish the fight and keep doing what I'm doing, just stay constant. And his will was broken. He said I didn't want to get knocked out. He said I'd been hurt badly, wobbled. He said my legs were buckled. He said every time he hit me, it was hurting me. He said I just didn't want to get knocked out.
And on this day, the 16th of December, 2007, Danny Green is your new world champion.
To destroy an opponent as good as him was a great sign. And 6 days later, Archie was born.
Well, you know, there's
my man came into the world.
Brilliant footage of you jumping out of the ring and going and kissing the baby bump there and
hugging my dad as well. You know, it was just giving him a hug and my brother as well, hugging my brother and my dad and my family and my wife, and that was.
There's emotional scenes. At that point, did you think you were going to kick on and keep fighting?
Oh, yeah, we lined up. You know, I had to have my mandatory against the Argentinian, who, you know, was a very good fighter, but the best thing about him was he was tailor-made for me because he didn't know what to do with the jab, and my jab was my bread and butter, and I feel he was a perfect opponent to make me look really good. So get him out of the way, my mandatory, there was the really, really strong possibility of luring Roy Jones Jr. out, and money talks in boxing, and he liked what he was hearing, the figures were thrown at him. He was prepared to come to Australia, and then potentially the monster rematch with Anthony Mundine, and then all of a sudden, you know, I woke up one morning at 1 a.m. and that was it. It was weird. It was very strange. I hadn't thought about it once until that night, and to wake up with my gut churning, and I've always listened to my gut instincts, and it was telling me to walk away, do what no one does, walk away as world champion, walk away on top, and it was very difficult. I went to sleep. I tried to sleep. Woke up at 10 a.m. in the morning, thinking, no, it's just a weird feeling. I woke up, and the day before I'd had probably one of the best sparring sessions I've ever had.
Yeah.
And was on a high. We left the gym on cloud 9. We couldn't believe it. Angelo and Salas and I left the gym going, and Kat and H were going, this is crazy. You know, we're firing. We're 5 weeks out. And I'm relaxing so much because I'm enjoying boxing so much more. And then to wake up and have that feeling come over me, and to know that my upcoming opponent's tailor-made for me. So I tried to sleep on it. I thought, no, this is just a weird thing. It's just a strange feeling. It might be anxiety. Who knows? Woke up in the morning, I had clarity. I just had to tell someone. I rang my wife and told her, and she said, "Are you sure that's what you want to do?" And then I rang my brother, and my brother said, "I'm stoked. I'm glad for you, mate. That's great news." Yep. I rang my dad, my best mate, and told him, and we had a bit of a cry. It was a tough thing to say. It was very emotional, and Dad and I cried. And I said to him, but he didn't know. I said, "Dad," he goes, "Mate," he goes, "Yeah, good. How you going?" I said, "Good, Dad." He said, "Mate, I'm going to upend my uphold my end of the bargain. Handshake agreement. I'm retiring, mate. I'm finished. I'm retiring today, Dad." He didn't say anything because I could tell he was crying. It was emotion got to him because we've been like that side by side our whole career. So he's been through so much with me, and my brother has too, and my wife and my whole family and my friends as well. They've been through so much and been so beautiful to me. And to call such a shock decision and rock the world like that, because I'm expected to do so much more. And must be a sign, so I didn't want to go against it, and my superstition must come into play there, Hammer.
Superstitions all come into place now.
This is the mother of all superstitions, and I think that
it's the biggest one of all time.
It was crazy. And
so this is the decision. It's final.
I did what not many fighters have done. Only 18 to be precise. I was the 19th to retire as a world champion. I did what hardly any fighters have ever had the strength to do, and that's retire well before they should have. And I retired well before my time, and I like to think that hopefully people can respect that and see the wisdom in that. You know, I've had so many people come up to me and say it's the best decision you could have ever made, and I've had so many people come up and say, I can't believe you retired. Why did you retire? We want to see you fight again. And that's a compliment.
Yep.
You know, that's a compliment those people are giving me, and I appreciate that and respect that, because you know they enjoy watching me fight. But you know, it's difficult because I'm a fighter at heart. I was born a fighter, obviously.
You'll never lose that feeling, Danny Green. But and I'm sure there's lots of wonderful things in the wings waiting to beckon you forward. And we look forward to seeing a lot more of you in a lot different areas going forward in the future. You've been a great role model and a great ambassador for the sport. The Green Machine phenomenon is be something that will be remembered for many, many years to come. And I'd like to shake your hand and say thank you for everything, my friend.
Thank you, Hannah. I appreciate it, mate.
I look forward to working with you a lot more in the future and seeing you at many of the Fox Sports shows ringside.
Thank you very much, and just take a quick opportunity to thank, you know, obviously Fox Sports for the support they've given me. You know, you have to have that support early on in your career, and in my 5th fight as a pro, they put me as a main event, which is a massive thrill, and obviously they took a punt and backed me, and I can't thank you guys enough. And to my fans and obviously to my family, you know how, you know, I think they know I'm thanked them enough, but this is an opportunity for me to thank the supporters and the people that have watched my fights and gone to my fights. And I can't name them individually because there's too many, but Australia-wide, the support I've had has been phenomenal, and I think that's the fact that the reason that is because I'm just one of them. Just my fights are on TV, and I'm good at fighting, and then people see my fights, so they, you know, I don't put myself on a pedestal above anyone. I'm the same as them, and I just want to thank those guys so much because it gave me such a massive lift and made my career so much more enjoyable, and gave me something a lot more to fight for just than the satisfaction and the love of the sport. But you know, to my friends and my family and my supporters, you know, I just can't thank you guys enough, and I hope I've given you the same amount of thrills as you've given me.
You certainly have.
Thanks, Emma.
Danny Green, thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Emma.